I'd like to call this meeting to order, please. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting to order, please. And at this time, I ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Harold Brown. Maxine Drew.
Present.
Lee Humphries. Present. Ed Jones.
Present.
Brown McPage. Present. Evelyn Finn.
Thank you. I ask that we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. As for the approval of the regular agenda.
Madam President, I'd like to add an item, please. I'd like to move to an additional executive session for purpose of discussion of personnel.
Okay.
I'd like to add an item. I'd like to move to add an additional executive session for the purposes of discussion of personnel. Did you hear me then? Good.
Thank you. We don't need to vote. Okay, all those in favor?
Get a second.
Did I get a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposing? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you so much. All right, now our recognitions and awards. Student of the Month recognition. Danny Humphries will present, and Dr. Wynn will be doing the reading.
Sure will, as soon as I get
Thank
loaded up.
you. Okay.
We need a motion to approve the agenda.
As amended, I guess that's correct. We moved to it, yeah,
Item, so we should now approve.
Approve the,
as amended.
we'll take a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposing? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you, Susan.
Ready now? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This evening's Students of the Month recognition. Our first student is Bella Frazee. Would you come forward? Bella is pre-K Silver City Elementary School, nominated by Jessica Clippinger, her pre-K teacher. She writes, Bella has shown so much growth this year. She is becoming kindergarten ready, and it shows every day in what she accomplishes. Bella has been an amazing role model for all of her class. She helps out others when they are struggling and is always teaching others something on a daily basis.
Hi, good evening, board. I'm Dr. Letourneau, Bella's principal. Her teacher is in the last trimester of her pregnancy, and her doctor's appointments are on Tuesdays, so she was not able to reschedule to attend any future board meetings. But we wanted to make sure and give her this opportunity. So she just gave me a few additional notes. She says that Bella's been using inventive spelling when making her books. She's been making books about Christmas, Valentine's Day, and numbers 1 through 100. She keeps trying to sound out different words and writes them on each page of her book. She's always trying to learn and accomplish new tasks. She can recognize the numbers 0 to 20 and can count to 49 and knows all basic shapes and knows all of her upper and lowercase letters. So she is definitely kindergarten ready. We're excited about that. She has been a role model for the other preschoolers, especially this year. She continues to amaze her teachers on how well she interacts with peers and helps them accomplish a task by either explaining to them how to do it or showing them. She is just a gem, and we are all very proud of her.
So, Bella, if my microphone is working, now what are you in preschool or kindergarten? Preschool. And what do you like most about preschool? You like recess? And what kind of books do you like to read at school?
Painting.
What color?
Painting.
Painting? And what do you think you'll be when you grow up?
A painter.
A painter? What kind of painting do you like to do? Bright colors or calm colors?
Dark colors.
Dark colors? Okay. So you're going to be in kindergarten?
Yes.
That's exciting, isn't it? Do you get to ride the bus to school?
Yes.
That is really exciting. So who came with you tonight?
My family.
Can you tell me their names?
Orange, Bailey, Destin.
Well, why don't you ask your family to stand up so everyone can see? Stand up, please. Looks like you brought mom and grandma and brother maybe, and sister and all kinds of people. And your principal? Are there any other teachers from your school here? Just your favorite principal? Okay, Bella. Do you see what this says? It says Bella is Student of the Month for April 2018. And when you go to school, you're going to wear this on the bus and at school so all the kids can see how special you are. Can you do that for us? This is from the Board of Education saying that you are just an expert. I can't pronounce the word. Exceptional. That's a good one I can pronounce. A special student for us. Thank you for coming tonight. If you go sit down just for a little while, with all these other ladies and gentlemen, like Anna say hi to you. That be okay? All right. Thank you.
Let's give Bella a big hand. Our next student is Brooklyn Simpson, first grade from Parker Elementary School. Nominated by Amanda Dirks, first grade teacher. Amanda writes, Brooklyn is such an amazing student to have in class. She is one of the hardest workers I've ever had in class. She never gives up, which is such a great quality to have. Brooklyn is well known and loved by all staff members. She is an amazing student and overall person. Amanda.
I was so happy to nominate Brooklyn. She is, like I said in my nomination, one of the hardest workers I have in my class. She always has a smile on her face, even if she has, she never comes in rough at all, but when she's missing, which is very, very rare, our class is not complete. So I'm very happy to have her as my nomination.
So, Brooklyn, what's your favorite time of day at school? Do you like math class or recess?
Math.
You like math? And do you have a reading class? You want to be with your teacher?
Yes.
What kind of books do you like to read best? Like animals or...
Animals.
Animals? Do you have a favorite animal?
Lion.
Lion? Oh. What do you think you might want to be when you grow up?
A doctor.
A doctor? A people doctor or an animal doctor?
A people doctor.
People doctor. Okay. So who did you bring with you tonight?
Mama, Daddy, Miss Dirt, Miss Innocent,
Mama's looking at you. You forgot somebody.
Grandma, cousin.
Grandma.
Oh my. Well, why don't we ask all of them to stand up so we can thank them for coming with you? So, this little medal here is from the Board of Education, and it says that you are Student of the Month for April 2018. And we would like you to wear this to school tomorrow. Would you do that, please? And show all your friends that you are a really good student and a very good citizen of the school. Okay? Can I put it on you? All right. Now, if you go out there and sit just for a little while, and we do some more kids, then everybody will come out and say hi to you. Would that be all right? Thank you very much for coming up here.
Our next student is Michelle Aguilera Enriquez, 6th grader from West Middle School. Michael Borders, the 6th grade math teacher at West Middle School, writes, the 6th grade team at West Middle School would like to nominate Michelle Aguilera as Student of the Month. Michelle has a strong work ethic, stands up for others in any situation, is a leader during collaborative tasks, and is naturally inquisitive. She is willing and able to help students of any background. Michelle stands out to our team in many ways and is very deserving of this honor.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to have nominated Miss Michelle Aguilera Enriquez as our middle school student of the month. As I mentioned to her, in my 15 years as a teacher in this district, she is, I believe, only the third student I've had the honor of recognizing. She is truly in rare company, and I don't take this nomination lightly. She's the type of student who would succeed no matter the circumstances. She is pleasant, works hard, volunteers in class during instruction and work time, translates, runs errands, is a soccer manager, and does everything with a positive attitude. I have never had one single issue with her. I want to have her parents tell me their secret to parenting so we can pass this around. She is a bright light on tough days. I love ending my day each day with her in my last hour class. I'm so glad she has helped us with our soccer team as well. I can only hope she stays involved and this dedicated through the remainder of her time in KCK and goes out into this world and changes it for the better. I'm proud of you, Michelle. Love you.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Josh Palmer, Michelle's social studies teacher, and I think she has found a couple of kind of key points to success. For example, a couple months ago, she brought in some tacos al pastor and some tamales. I think her only problem is she didn't share them with all her teachers. I did warn her I might embarrass her just a little bit tonight. But, yeah. Tacos al pastor, tamales. Keep up the great work. You are a wonderful, lovely student. I am so happy that you got nominated for this.
So, Michelle, what is your favorite subject in school?
Math.
Math?
Yeah.
Not social studies?
Both.
Oh. So you're the soccer manager?
Yes.
And what else do you do?
I'm student council.
Student council? Do you play?
Yes, I play two. I play two.
Which two do you play?
Piano and cello.
Dr. Mike plays the cello. Sometimes. So, what kind of books do you like to read?
Chapter.
Fiction.
An architect.
An architect? So, what kind of classes do you think we can do?
They can't hear you.
A lot of math class because architect uses a lot of measurements.
A lot of math classes? And history classes? You can study the history of architecture?
Yes.
Who did you bring with you tonight?
I brought my mom, my sister, and my teachers and the principal.
Yes, then you stand up.
Can stand up.
What else you would like to say?
Very honored to be here.
We can't hear you.
That I'm so glad to be here and I'm very honored.
this says that Michelle is the 2018 April Student of the Month. And this is presented on behalf of the Board of Education. We are so proud of you, and we look forward to you being high school student months. And you wear that to school tomorrow, and you tell everyone how special you are, even though you probably already know. And if you hang around just for a little while, everyone will come out and say hi to you. Thank you, Michelle.
For our last category, we have 3 honorees. 12th grade, J.C. Harmon High School, nominated by Jeff Marcos, principal. We have Zachary Garner, Alicia Granados Rodriguez, and Genesis Garcia Flores.
All right.
Principal Marcos writes, "It gives me great pleasure to recommend Zachary Garner, Alicia Granados Rodriguez, and Genesis Garcia Flores for the Kansas City, Kansas School District's Student of the Month. This past weekend, these 3 amazing students gave a powerful spoken word presentation at the March for Life Walk. They not only represented themselves, their families, and their school extremely well, they also did an amazing job of showing off their voice and advocating for what they need. I could go on and on about how great these students are and to include many other great things that they have done. But I'm going to let their leadership that they showed at the march speak for itself."
What was said there definitely, and then it was funny was when they spoke in front of thousands of people at this March for Life campaign, and then we had them come speak in front of our staff, 105 people. And in talking to them, they said they were more nervous talking in front of our staff than they were in front of thousands of people. It just shows the kind of character, you're in front of people that you really respect around with your teachers. It's nice to see the humility that they have, the fact that they took it on their initiative to go speak at this. Like we said, their leadership is something to be encouraged. We want to push that, so thank you for showing your voice. Thank you very much.
Very good representatives of our school district and our students. We appreciate everything that you've done. I'm going to make this short and give you each your medallion and ask who came with you and what you're going to do, and then we're going to ask you if you would please perform for us. So Zachary?
Yes.
You are April 2018 Student of the Month. On behalf of the Board of Education, you wear that to school tomorrow? What did you bring with you tonight?
I brought my sister and my mom, my brother, and my dad. I didn't bring them with me, but my principal, my freshman English teacher, Miss Ramirez, and one of my favorite ladies, Miss Thompson from Gear Up. She came too. So I don't know if she came for me, but.
And one last question. What do you think you're going to do when you graduate from high school?
I've been accepted to Columbia College of Chicago, and so that's, yeah. I will be majoring in, performing arts and comedy, performing, and writing.
All right.
So, yeah.
That's me. I'm right here.
Genesis, this is your medallion to wear to school tomorrow because you're also the 2018 April Student of the Month. And you know how proud we are of you.
Thank you.
So, who did you bring with you tonight?
I didn't bring my blood family, but I have my mom from Gear Up, Miss Thompson. I also have my principal and Miss Ramirez and Miss Hutton. I also have my wrestling coach in the back, and a couple of my wrestling family too. Oh, and these guys. These guys too. Yeah.
So, what are you going to do after high school?
As of right now, my plan is to go to Johnson County for 2 years and transfer, but I'm looking into Ottawa to do their wrestling program there. So yeah.
Oh, great, great. Alicia. Yeah. You're student of the month too, aren't you? Yeah. You three are a good trio. Who did you bring with you tonight?
Well, I brought my sister and my mom. They're sitting back there. And also my principal. My also freshman reading teacher, Miss Ramirez. And I also know Miss Thompson a bit from Gear Up. So,
Stand up.
And these guys are my friends too. My family.
Student of the month at Harmon High School. And the three of you should walk very proudly down the hallways tomorrow because you're setting a good example for everyone else. What are you going to do after high school?
Well, I got accepted to UMKC here in KC-Mo. But I'm thinking of majoring in graphic design and / animation. So that's what I'm thinking of doing with my life. But yeah.
You guys give me just a minute to go sit in my seat. Okay. Then we would like you to show us what we're so proud of. Okay, thank you.
This is awesome.
Whenever you guys are ready.
I'm waiting on you.
Oh, by the way, I don't know what I'm majoring in, so just in case y'all wanted to know, undecided.
Teacher and come back home. Okay, get it.
Starting the day, wishing there was rain, is simple for the pain I'm feeling, for the pain we are all feeling.
But the school is too silent, mourning for the ones that we lost.
Taken by the man in the black cape who carries a sickle, taking 96 lives a day by the gun that spits fire from still lips. Bang!
A still whisper chased by cries, echoing through halls filled with strangers whose names we knew by heart.
As they reach out their hands, we receive their words, word by word. We are here for you.
But we are not the same.
Silence our gifts, grief our prize.
December 2, 2017.
This one hits harder than before, but the next one will be worse than the others.
One has left us, taken with him a chip of our soul, leaving nothing but tissues and scorn.
We have learned to numb our senses when they come with their speeches we know by heart.
As some of you may have heard,
It is important for you to know that we have a team in the library.
Death can be difficult to understand sometimes, and you may be feeling different emotions.
And on days like those, the library is filled with broken souls even before they get a chance to drill those words in our heads one more time. Bang!
Silently, we wait in line, waiting for the next one to come, but we hold on tightly to those around us, those loved ones we refuse to part with.
but no matter how hard we may hold on to them, some are yanked, dripped away from the safety of our arms and forced to face a cold, never-ending sleep. Brandon Brown, 2016. Class of 2018 has seen too many buried caskets.
Class of 2018 has seen too many balloon-filled skies.
Filling pools of solemn tears, we cry out our hearts to those who were taken.
Taken too soon from those who loved them. Bang!
Though tears may yet fall for the fallen.
We are yet to be immune to the gun violence.
Where did we go wrong? Where did the days of trust and love go? The easy, soft days where a girl would cry and whine because her hair was ruined from a bit of gum.
To a tear-stricken face because there was a gun against her head. Brene Brown, 2016.
Why is it today it is so common to see a mother crying, dying because her baby was in a shooting?
Bang!
A father watching the fact that his kid was being laid into the ground to rest.
Theodore Road, 2015.
Hating the gun that took the life
of one that was innocent.
Friends and families, broken, mourning, grieving, not believing that this was a reality. Khalif Hampton, 2014.
Now we take a stand to start the petition to make a change in the world of today.
To end violence.
Find justice.
Growing compassion.
To learn to coexist with one another and appreciate the lives that we have to guard and love.
Let the tears we shed not be in vain. Convert, change, become a world not ruled by sorrow and pain.
So let us embrace each other.
And together,
let us wash out fear
like rain.
Thank you.
Truly awesome. Thank you so much. And now we come to the recognition of our winter sports athlete. We ask Mr. Walt Thompson to please come.
Would you need to come around to the front of the table?
Huh?
Come around to the front of the table?
Yeah.
So you can shake hands with all of our.
Can we all go up front? Excuse me.
Mr. Thompson.
We're going to all go up front so we can shake hands with the athletes.
Yes, sir. Take it over.
Good evening. To the board, President Brenda Jones, Dr. Cindy Lane, Superintendent, to parents, to the students, this is a great opportunity to share out with our district the winter sports participants. We have wrestling, we have girls and boys basketball, and we have bowling. The way that we will present our athletes to you, first of all, we will allow Wyandotte High School to present first because they have a presentation at their school, National Honor Society, tonight at 7. Followed by Wyandotte High School will be presented by Mr. Rufus Black, the athletic director at Wyandotte. Harmon High School will be presented by Mr. Dorr, Dennis Dorr, the athletic director at Harmon High School. Ms. Sonia Scott from FL Schlegel High School, the athletic director there, will present her athletes. From Sumner Academy, Mrs. Carrie Whitney will present the athletes from Sumner Academy. And from Washington High School, Mr. Laderick Collins, the Dean of Students, will present the athletes from Washington High School. We had a very competitive year in all of our sports. Our basketball teams were competitive, girls and boys. Our wrestlers were very competitive, and our bowlers were very competitive. So we've had a very good year. We had 878 winter athletes to start the season. We finished up with 718. So about 82% of our kids finished up the season. There are a number of scholarships, and perhaps our high schools can share those successes with you as they present their students.
I want to say good afternoon to everyone. I want to thank Walt Thompson for his leadership. He's been a great help in his position. We couldn't be here without him. We want to thank the board. We want to thank our superintendent. We also like to thank all those administrators here who work at the district level. We even want to thank and say hello to our lawyer, okay, who our district. Give him a round of applause, please. Okay, right here, we appreciate that. As you already heard, tonight we have one of the beautiful programs to students, our national awards, that will be happening. We have to leave here very shortly, okay? But what I try to do is make sure that I don't get Ms. Stewart in trouble, and I will let her do most of the talking so that we will be able to get, to our next program. Tonight, you're seeing some outstanding young men Without them, without their coaches, that would not be possible. Okay, so I do want you to give them a few minutes. And we will start with our young ladies, coached by Ms. Cynthia Gardner, followed by our boys basketball team, Coach Wesley, with Coach Vaughn. Also with our wrestling team, 3 of our coaches, with Mr. Parker, also his worthy assistants, Mr. Eugene Rodriguez, a graduate of Wyandotte High School, okay, and also Mr. Dennis, Chris Dennis, okay. Would you please have the young ladies please come out here in front, please. Ms. Gardner, before we start that, I will please, if you could give a round of applause to one of the great administrators, leaders in the state of Kansas, Ms. Mary Stewart.
We'd like to begin the presentation with KCAL, the Kansas City Kansas Atchison League All-Conference Award, First Team Basketball to Miss Monique Hunt.
By the way, I don't want to allude, I don't want to miss anybody. If you see Miss Gardner there, she's also a graduate of Wyandotte and also was one of my players. Made me look good. And we have a lot of great athletes here from all of our schools, but I'll be remiss if I did not say this. It's always a great day to be a Bulldog. All-Conference Award for our Kansas City Atchison League Newcomer of the Year, Mr. Diamond Hines. Also, Diamond Hines, just like his name, he's was cut by our coaches. Our coaches really cut him into a diamond. He was also the first team. He was also on the first team also this year, as well as a newcomer. Wazell Evans, also a member of the first team. I will read off these other names that maybe not here. A lot of our student athletes have jobs and also in other sports. Joseph Moyer, honorable mention. Mr. Torrey Moore, honorable mention. And Wazell Evans, Basketball Player of the Year Award. And very special, we want to thank the other coaches who voted for our athletes. They also selected this year as the Coach of the Year, Mr. Martez Wesley. On his team, he only had one senior and one junior. So the future looks very bright. Next will be our wrestling team. I'd like to be able to have Coach Parker, his teams, please come up, gentlemen. Gentlemen, please come up front here. We read off your names. As most of you know, we have a lot of associations. Kansas Wrestling Coach Association, in the last 3 years, Wyandotte has had several awesome young men. And you see in front of you, this year the GPA is 3.45. And the 5A, there's only one school that was in front of us. We're not going to mention their name because they're in Johnson County. Don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, okay? But we were the first in the Kansas Wrestling Coaches Association. Congratulations to our coaches and our athletes. Francisco Diaz, 120-pound wrestler, second team. Jairo Silva, 170 pounds wrestling, second team. Julio, and I call him Juju, Julian Vilapando, And he was, again, wrestling, and he's also doing baseball, 152 pounds. Evan Lazarus, 145 pounds, second team. And Jalen Castro, 138. And also, he was one of our champions. And I want you to understand that we had Jalen's also, we had 3 of those young men who qualified. And some of the young men you see up here are also members of Sumner internship. They're doing doing an awesome job for us. Ms. Stewart, anything else you'd like to say? And I don't want to forget, a lot of people mess up his name. It's Yassine Chappelle. Okay? And Roberto, they all 3 of those young men qualified as state. Okay, please give them a round of applause. Thank you.
My name is Dennis Dorr. I'm the athletic director at Harmon High School. I would also like to thank Dr. Lane and the school board for their support of our athletic programs at J.C. Harmon. I'd like to thank Mr. Marcos for everything he does to support our athletic programs. Well, I don't know how he snuck in, but he did. I would first of all like to announce and just read off the names of the second team wrestling. KCAL, second team. At 220 pounds, we had Marco Gomez. At 195 pounds, we had Salvador Ailman. At 113 pounds, we had Kevin Rosales. And at 106 pounds, we had Mark Hernandez. Congratulations. I would like to introduce our coaching staff, our wrestling coaching staff, who we think did a phenomenal job this year getting wrestlers out to compete and keeping them out. And we did qualify 6 wrestlers for the state tournament in Wichita. So we thought they did an exceptional job. Head coach Zach Davies. Coach Thompson. And Coach Lewis. Thank you, gentlemen, for a job well done. We have 3 wrestlers that finished first place in our KCAL tournament. At 145 pounds, we had Eric Fernandez. At 152 pounds, we had Isaac French. And at 182 pounds, we had Juan Lugo. I will mention recipients of awards for girls basketball. We had honorable mention girls basketball, Cassandra Sanchez and Micaiah Watson. For boys basketball, second team, KCAL, Chauncey Keys. And first team basketball, Lonell Lane. So once again, I'd like to thank everyone for the opportunity to acknowledge these athletes this evening and congratulate them on a job well done. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Sonia Scott from F.L. Schlegel High School. I'm the athletic director, and I'm very proud to announce our recipients. We have this year our boys and girls basketball team both were state participants, and also our wrestling team. We had 7 individuals that made it to state. So I'm very proud of what we've done at F.L. Schlegel this year. Our basketball coach, girls basketball coach, Mark Western, sends his regrets. He has been home sick the past 2 days. The weather's been changing, so you know how it goes. But on our basketball team, we had second team, I have it backwards. Kanasia Green was second team basketball. We had first team Camille Evans, first team Ashanti Suttington, defensive player of the year Camille Evans, and we had newcomer of the year Tylia Wallace, who was here with us. The boys basketball, we had Ronell Mitchell, second team, Randy Campbell, second team, Tyon Grant Foster, first team, and DeMont Gall, first team. Okay. With our wrestling team, KCAL second team 138 goes out to Sergio Sanchez. The KCAL champion at 285 weight class is Tylen Wallace, who also took third in state at that same weight division. KCAL weight champion 220, Paul Beasley. KCAL weight champion 160 weight class, Phoenix Downs. Both Paul and Phoenix were also state participants. KCAL champion weight class 126, Mason Turner. Mason Turner was state champ at this weight class, and he is also the MVP of the KCAL League. He will be attending Fort Hays State in the fall. Weight class 120, KCAL champion Bobby Primer. Weight class 113, KCAL champ Jonah Andrews. And Mason, come back because you were also KCAL Player of the Year, Mason Turner. We also had the luxury of having the Coach of the Year in wrestling, and that goes to our very own Tyler Wallace Jr. I apologize, Taylor Wallace Jr. Thank you very much. Oh, I apologize. We also had some state participants, Dalen Borsal. Anthea Valencia. And our coaching staff, we have Justin Andrews and Trayvon Wallace.
Here we go, everybody. Count three. 1, 2, 3.
Good evening, and I'm here with all one of my Sumner athletes tonight. However, if the rain would quit interfering, we would be able to have the rest of our athletes here tonight. We have a lot of makeup games tonight. So I would just like to mention we had 2 ladies who bowled and medaled at state bowling this year. We had 3 wrestlers who were on the KCAL wrestling team. We had 4 basketball male athletes, one of them Defensive Player of the Year, DeCarlo Jackson. And the girls basketball team won the league. So, pretty good start. Our girls basketball coach, Todd Wassman, won Coach of the Year, and he's unable to attend. He had minor surgery yesterday, all good. But make sure to get him his award. Special tonight is Elizabeth Vaughn, who played. Yep. I told her I'd try to do this without crying. I've had Elizabeth for 5 years. Tonight to present her award for not only basketball team and being a league champ, she was voted by the other coaches as the Player of the Year for girls basketball. And her music teacher is going to present that to her because she is going to study music at Ottawa University on 2 scholarships, not only for basketball, but for academic as well.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ladarius Collins, the Dean of Student at Washington. I'm standing in for our athletic director, Miss Hoyer. So we have 6 athletes that's going to be honored tonight. I think only 3 actually showed up. We have the KCAL honorable mention for second team. It's Ashley Gibson. Naomi Rodriguez, she's not here right now. And also congratulations to our coach, Coach Richards, which is our first year. For boys basketball, we have Bruce Thomas for second team, KCAL conference, and also Taiwan Maturi for honorable mention. We have all-conference award for 126-pound wrestling second team K-Cal, Jordan Thompson. And also with his coach McGee. We had one bowler to qualify for state this year, and his name is Austin Burton. He's with Coach Bobbitt.
We'd like to thank all of our coaches, and we want to thank all of the parents who supported our programs. We would like to continue to invite parents and well wishes to all of our games. This Saturday, hoping that the rain stays away and the snow, we are putting on our first baseball jamboree down at the old 3-2 stadium on Parallel. So we're looking to start playing baseball at 11 a.m. in the morning and finish up about 5:30. So we're looking forward to seeing you at some parts of Saturday. Thank you again, and thanks to all of our athletes.
And now we'll go out and shake the students' hands, please, and their families. Are the student of the month still around? Yes, yes.
When they were standing there watching the line.
Where will you find it?
Stick a fork in me, I'm done.
Ministers are anxious because they're going back to convention.
I know.
Shut up, Drew. I gotta.
They have to wait their turn. See, it tells me I can't join it now. Oh. It's not letting me join anything.
Well, why don't you go on down here since they've been waiting?
Okay.
Back here.
Yeah, because they got to get back to Leavenworth. See, look, it tells me I can't join it.
You're active. It's active.
They said I wasn't. See?
You gotta tell me who you are. You're whom? Okay. Oh, from the banquet. That's where you were. Okay. Okay. Listen, I'm having my own. You got any? I left mine at home.
Where's did you get this?
Mr. Monroe. His wife, he was a little boy.
They won't let me in there, so I can't see nothing.
Go ahead and oh, here it comes.
I'm telling you. Get off of me. That negative
thing. You got that magic.
It rolls up.
I just shook it. I think they would
Okay. At this time, we're going to change something up here. We're going to ask for community comments at this time.
I can't hear you.
And at this time, we're going to change and ask for community comments and ask Reverend Jimmy Banks to please come forward. No?
Reverend Lamb is the president, and we'd like to come up with him.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Get this.
Ms. Jones and Dr. Lane and our school board. We're the Kansas City, Kansas Baptist Ministers Union, and we're an association of pastors and ministers who lead the congregations of 36 churches in Wyandotte County. Consequently, many of our children are parishioners attending the District 500 schools, as did many of us, and of course, Wyandotte High School. Forever.
All right. Go ahead, Red. Go ahead.
He's looking for Sumner.
Watch your mouth now.
To that end, we have vested interest in our schools and their efforts to provide a quality education which prepares our children for the world and work and enables them to be contributing law-abiding citizens. The selection of a superintendent is of most importance to us, our parishioners, and our community. Subsequent to our meeting last week with Ray and Associates, we prepared to share our perceptions with you. We have partnered with board leadership on several issues and pledged to continue in that vein for the reasons which we are mutually beneficial. With regard to the current selection process, we would like the board to consider the following: provide an opportunity for community representation, including the Baptist Ministers Union, in the process which narrows the applicant pool to those who would be interviewed. Similarly, community representation should also be in the group which identified the final list from which the selection will be made. Also, we are concerned that the current timeline of having a superintendent named by the end of June may not allow the time necessary for a position of this level and of importance to be filled. It should not be a rushed process. A lot depends on the outcome of this election. This is similar to filling out an opening for a corporate CEO, and it should be treated as such. We, the members of the Baptist Ministers Union, would like to thank you for allowing us this opportunity to speak And we ask that you would please give us some thoughts, give thoughts to our suggestions. My name is Reverend Desmond Lamb. I'm the president. One of our civic leaders is represented. Reverend Jimmy Banksy will come now, but Dr. C.L. Backus, Reverend Barbara Milan, and Reverend Ricky Turner are also part of our civic team, along with other members of our union. And I'll yield now for Reverend Banks to come.
Thank you, and again, thanks for this opportunity. First, let me say how sad we are to see Sister Cindy Lane ride off into the sunset, because we've had good relationships with her and the woman that she succeeded, Stubenhofer?
Shackelford.
That's what I said, Shackelford. This is a very important activity, and I think that you would do yourself well to include as many stakeholders in the process, because that's where you get the vested support that's necessary for us to partner along a landscape of ideas and activities that can make the system better and grow. Several of us have had extensive experience in human resource staffing and corporate development and all of those. And you have other people in the community who have experience that might be relevant and useful as you go through the process that many of us have gone through before. So we wanted to give you that input and share the fact that we're available and willing to help in this very important selection process. Again, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Reverend Banks, did you have something you wanted to pass out?
Yes, I have copies of the letter.
Thank you. Before we go any further, someone's glasses was found out and somebody's missing some glasses. They're here. They look children's glasses. They look like children's glasses, so. Okay, thank you. Now we're ready for communications from Dr. Lane.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Good evening, board, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much to the Baptist Ministerial Alliance for being here tonight. We appreciate it. I don't know that my mic is on. Is it on? How's that? Very good. We do appreciate you all being here. Prior to the board meeting, we had a wonderful opportunity to spend a few moments of time with the Central Middle School's robotics team. They were presenting on not their robotics projects, but frankly on a civic engagement projects that they want to improve water quality and frankly quality of living in their neighborhood. The projects were highly impressive. The young people are talking about the need to remove abandoned structures and create green spaces and parks to improve the quality of life that they have. I'm mentioning this to you tonight so you can watch for this same group of young middle school leaders who will be presenting to the Unified Government Commission sometime in the next 30 days, and we will share that date with you. Very proud of their sixth graders who are standing in front of adults talking about how we need to improve our community. So I wanted you to be aware of that. Also wanted to mention that Sumner Academy Arts and Sciences Choir performed with the KU Choir this past Sunday at the Kaufman Center. I wasn't able to attend, but I hear that that concert was beautiful. That opportunity is by invitation only. So please join me in congratulating the Sumner Choir for their outstanding performance. I also want to mention tonight that our our J.C. Harmon, I almost called the wrong school, my apologies. J.C. Harmon's robotics team will be competing in the National First Robotics Tournament. They have been competing here locally and have earned the opportunity to go to Houston in the next couple of weeks and compete on a national scale. Now, mind you, this team has been working hard for a number of years, but last year was the first year they were actually in competition. And from just 1 year forward, they're now in national competition, competing with individuals from around the world. So please congratulate Harmon's robotic team. There's many terrific things that are happening this time of year, lots of performances and plays and opportunities to see the hard work of our teachers and staff. So I just want to take a moment to thank everyone for the hard work. Thank you for your determination to help our children succeed. Thank you for continuing to be learners and aiming for results that matter for our kids. It is evident in what we see each and every day in the district. Along with that, board, thank you for your learning and focus to understand the complexity of running a school district. I wanted to be sure that we respond to some of the questions that you have put before us. So first I'll start, Ms. Brownlee-Page, you asked at our last meeting for a report on district expenses under $20,000 for the last 3 years. We have prepared that report for you. There are 2 boxes behind you full of information that responds to that request. And we also will have it uploaded, board, for you in your board library. Let me remind the board how the process works. As you are developing your budget for the district for next year with Dr. Mather and her team, you will approve broad categories of expenditures, all expenditures, regardless if it's $1 to millions of dollars. So you approve it in broad categories in August when you approve your budget. Then at each board meeting, when you pay the bills, you are paying for those expenditures. So it doesn't matter if they require a bid or not. The board establishes the process for our expenditures and you give final approval. So Ms. Page, we'll be sure and have someone assist you with these materials, but they're there for your review. You might need to be sure to have your reading glasses on. So let me hand you this one. We'll add it to your set. So we have that. There was also a question about estimated costs for paid holidays for our hourly employees. Dr. Mather will talk more about budget with us on Monday, but I wanted you to have the amount. That would create additional expenditures of $1.3 million to have additional paid holidays for hourly employees. Dr. Yeager, you requested information pertaining to our police department, administrative structures, attrition of teachers, and that kind of thing. On your board docs, we have provided you with information and all the board members around that. If you want a paper copy, I certainly would be glad to provide that to you, board. But what we have provided are the organization charts, not only for the police department, but for administrative staff. We have provided for you copies of job descriptions, salary schedules, and we believe we've responded to all your questions there, Dr. Yeager. When you're looking at your board docs, it's under My Communications, and then scroll down to where it says Executive Content Board, and that's where you'll find all of those documents. In addition, Dr. Yeager had some questions related to our human resources report and sale of surplus, and so that is there for you as well. And we can swing back to that when you get to approving payment of bills this evening, okay? So I think that we are nearly caught up with some of the information that the board has requested. We do have 2 or 3 other areas that we'll be responding to you either via email or during our special meeting coming up on Monday. But for now, it gives me great pleasure to invite to the podium Dr. Diana Clemens. Dr. Clemens came to the listening session at Wyandotte, and she shared with us the work that she is doing to empower young people, to help our young people become leaders. And she's doing this work across the nation, work that began right here in KCK and soon matriculated over to Kansas City, Missouri, and we're just really pleased to have her back home to share. Her team met with members of the administrative staff this afternoon so we could learn more. We have plans for ongoing conversation, but we're grateful that you are back home, Dr. Clemens, and are spending a few moments with us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you to the superintendent, Dr. Lane, and to the board, and to everyone that is here. Again, I am Dr. Diana Clemens, the founder and executive director of Future Leaders Outreach Network. And I'm going to go through these slides pretty quickly, but most important, our program is developed to teach young people to set boundaries from drugs and alcohol, violence, bullying, and all premature sexual activity so that they can soar like you see that eagle on the screen. Teaching them and equipping them to soar to new heights. And when it's time for young people to graduate from high school, the program that we've taught across the nation and now in Texas, these young people have always said, that you have helped me to pursue my dreams. And the curriculum is my journey, the rites of passage to responsible adulthood. Am I clicking this to the right one? Where I need to go? Okay, there we go. Okay, the slogan is leaders are like eagles soaring to reach the top. And that is our desire through an evidence-based curriculum that we teach and have been teaching for since 1999. This is an event that's for the community. When we teach the program throughout the year, we all come together. The parents come out to celebrate the young people in the program. That was at Sheffield. We've done one at the Memorial Hall Auditorium some years ago. Youth Front, that's now another building. But it's young people are standing there looking and watching young people and young adults to tell them why it's important for them to stay focused on pursuing their dreams. We have seen outcomes in our program, that statistically significant outcomes through pre and post surveys that reported in 2009-2010, all 26 survey items were statistically significant. In your presentation package that I have provided for you, you'll see the report here was published in the American Journal Health Studies. The American Journal Health Studies, we submitted that report, and 6 weeks later it came back approved, and that's really kind of unheard of to get it back that quickly. As we pursue to help young people to pursue their dreams, the name of the program is Pursue Your Dreams Eagle Club Project. EAGLE is an acronym for Emerging and Aspiring Global Leaders and Entrepreneurs. And we say at Future Leaders Outreach Network that all young people who are destined to pursue their dreams, that they can pursue their dreams with the help of the community. We have collaborative partners. We're looking forward to partnering back up with the school district here in Kansas City, Kansas, and implementing this program so that the young people who are 11 to 22 years old will be able to pursue their dreams, as they are the future emerging, aspiring, and global leaders and entrepreneur. The program implemented in the school during school time is a 45-minute session, and I understand from today's meeting that they have blocks that are 90 minutes. The curriculum is 12 modules integrated in with youth risk behavior curriculum, which is the drugs and alcohol and the violence. But most important, we have integrated in the middle of all of those risk behavior programs so it won't be so overwhelming about don't do drugs, don't do alcohol. But what do you want to pursue when you get out of school? So we administer a career exploration assessment, True Colors, and we ask the young people when they first stand up, what do you want to pursue when you get out of school? And so we jot that down, and we have in the past had tents on the table where we'll put their names there, and we call them Mr. and Mrs. We always address all of our students Miss or Mrs., or Miss, I'm sorry, Mr. or Mrs. And we also sometimes tell the young man, especially if that young man is having some problems with his behavior, I say, young man, you are a prince, destined to become a king. Young lady, you are a princess, destined to become a queen. And that what do you want to pursue when you get out of school? And once we keep telling those young people over and over again that they are future leaders and they can be somebody, we have them to take this affirmation card. It's called Mapping Your Future. And it's the Pursue My Dreams or Your Dreams affirmation. And that's a card that you have in your folder. And basically, I'll read it for those who don't have a copy. And as long as they keep saying this over and over again, it becomes real to them. I will graduate from high school. I will pursue my dream career. I will be successful. I am a positive leader. I will not talk negative. Being positive builds my self-confidence. I will stay away from negative talking people. Why? Because I have a dream that I want to pursue. And when young people keep hearing this over and over and over again, behaviors have changed. If you could turn it to your booklet, board members, onto page 17. If you turn to page 17, actually go to turn to page 18. If you turn to page 18, in this booklet right here, it says the 2018 annual report and semi-annual report that's in your booklet. It's on your right-hand side of your folder. And turn to page 18. And you will see in there that we did a community satisfaction survey. Our evaluator, Dr. Jeannie Hayes, who's here, has done a wonderful job with my staff. We're currently down in Texas. That's our office in Texas. And we have an office over in Kansas City, Missouri on 71st, High 171, actually on Linwood Boulevard at the Old Presbyterian Church. And this survey was sent out confidentially to 44 stakeholders teachers, community leaders, board members, and others. And out of a 5-point scale, it was said that 4.8 of those who responded to the survey that they're very satisfied with the Future Leaders Outreach Network program. And as I close, if you can turn also in your booklet, and you'll see some letters from some of the teachers, letters from principals, but there's one that sticks out the most to me. All of them were awesome letters from students. If you would turn in your booklet to page 25. This is from a student at Clay Classical in the 8th grade, and I'll read it for everyone else. I really enjoyed your Future Leaders Outreach Network. I learned many things. There are things that people learn through experience, but those things were taught in one class. The days that we were here, we learned so much. I've been in this program since it was introduced to Clay Classical, which was in 2015 of October, so we've been there now 3 years. I've seen myself grow emotionally, physically, and economically, and mentally. I went from carrying $5 to $30. And he got that he wrote that because of the financial literacy that we teach. So I did provide you a copy of the financial literacy curriculum that we teach in the school. He goes on to say, I went from having random outbursts. Teachers and principals have been sharing with us that because we keep affirming to young people about them pursuing their dreams, that they are special, that behaviors have changed, and changed so much so that our program is mentioned as one of the programs that helps behaviors in a school in Dallas, Texas. When we first went to that school last year, board members, I was like, oh my goodness, what do we get ourselves into? But I told my staff to go with a smile, do not talk down to them, do not holler at them, and continue to let them students know that they are special. Continue to let those students know that they will pursue their dreams despite of what anyone is saying. And let them know that they are not who that they say that they are or who that others say that they are, and that they are future and are emerging leaders. So he went on to say that, he went from random outbursts to controlling everything that is controllable in his life and around him. And that's just a few of the letters that we have there. So as I conclude, we say at Future Leaders Outreach Network, it takes the entire family to raise a child. It takes the entire community, all fathers, all adults. And the adults are our programs. The adults are the pastors. The adults are everyone doesn't have a biological child in the school. We are the all adults as it relates to the 40 Developmental Assets Search Institute. And it takes that mother involved in leading youth. It takes the entire family. And partnering up and collaborating with the school district, our program, standing side by side with that teacher, that principal, that coach, will be adding value to the students. We'll be adding value to the teacher, and we'll be adding value to the parents and the caring adults. And we do have a program for the parents, and it's a very, very unique way in how we get parents to come out. And if just that one parent comes out, that's that one parent who can go and tell somebody else that our program made an impact on them. It's that one parent that can come out and say, you changed my life. It was that one parent that told us one time that I went back to school because you challenged my son and my daughter to go to school. Is that one parent or that one caring adult that said that you made an impact on our program. I want to thank you again for this opportunity, again, to implement, and on behalf of my board of directors, staff, our evaluator, Ms. Njeri Shimari, who had to go back to Lawrence, Kansas, we thank you, we thank you, and we thank you. God bless.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you coming home for this presentation and meeting not only with the board tonight, but with staff. So Dr. Strickland and his team will be doing some debrief of what we learned today and then following up with Dr. Clemens on next steps.
Thank you.
Tied to that. My final communication tonight, board, will be given by Mrs. Marcy Clay. She's going to update us on the Kansas Education Schools Accreditation Model and our upcoming visit by our accreditation team. Mrs. Clay.
Good evening, board. On your table should be something that looks like this, and it's titled Kansas Vision for Education. You've seen that before. Earlier in the school year, I have shown that to the board a couple of times. And so the reason I'm presenting this to you again is this is what I call is the framework for the accreditation process that Kansas is now undergoing. It's a new model, if you remember. I explained to you, it's a new model. If I'm sure Ms. Drew and Ms. Brownlee Page remember back in the days the QPA model. Well, there's no more QPA. This is now what we call the KISA, which is, Dr. Lane always has to help me, Kansas Education
School accreditation. Is it
Excuse
school
me?
accreditation?
School accreditation. We just know it by KISA. That's what we know it by. And so what I want to direct your attention to, because I'm going to give you an update of where we are with the KISA process in KCK. If you remember, if you see the section that is called results, you remember those are the 5 areas that KISA focuses on for accreditation. And one of the things about KISA that makes it different from QPA is that it is about growth. It is about the progress that a district shows in the work that they're going to focus on. So when you look at those 5 areas, if you remember, I said to you that ought to sound awful familiar. Well, it does, because this has been the work of KCK over the past several years. So we are right on target. And I believe when Dr. Watson stood here in front of you, he indicated that KCK kind of led the pathway for the development of the KISA process and the Kansas Vision for Education. So those 5 areas of results are very familiar to us. Then if you look down and you see the evidence-based practice, that's what I want to update you on. If you remember, there are 4 areas of this process, and you have them there: relationships, relevance, responsive culture, and rigor. And underneath those areas, there are specific, what they call criteria. So what we did is in January, after winter break, we asked all of our principals and all of the instructional coaches to come to the central office, and we revisited the KISA process because we had introduced it to them in July. So now we brought them back in January, ready to review the KISA process, but more importantly, to begin to dig in deep into the 4 rubrics that they talk about here: relationships, relevance, responsive culture, and rigor. And so what we did is we provided some information for the principals and the coaches. We strategically grouped them. We had our leaders from the executive directors, the instructional support team, take ownership into this as well, and they helped facilitate the session in January. What we walked away with that day was the principals and the coaches really diving into those 4 rubrics and looking at the criteria, and their task was to recommend the 2 areas that this district would focus on, because the KISA process says you only have to pick what we call R's, because they all start with an R. You only have to pick 2 R's. So the charge to the principals and the instructional coaches were dig in deep, look at the data, look at our work. Which 2 R's should this district be focusing on? And so we, Sarah Ryder came up with a way that could tally their voting, sort of, and so also gave reason why they were choosing that R. So at the end of the meeting, all the schools, the principals, instructional coaches, assistant principals, determined that the 2 R's that our district would focus on was relationships and relevance. So the next charge for them was to now go back to their building leadership teams and share with them the 2 R's, how we got there. And many of the principals asked for the same materials, for the same PowerPoint that we use. So we passed that on to them. And so their target was go back and assess those 2 R's. And I meant to, David, would you hand me my black bag? I want to show you a copy of the rubric. You've seen it before, but I want to show you what we sent to them. Well, I think I'm going to show you, board. I'll just show it to you like this. Thank you, David. What we did is we copied Remember this? I showed this to you. And these are called the rubrics. And so what we did is we sent this to the buildings, and their principals and instructional coaches were to now take this to their leadership teams and go through the relationship rubric and the relevance rubric and go through every criteria and begin to assess where their building was at in terms of relationships based on the criteria in the book and relevance based on the criteria in the book. They were encouraged to make comments, to ask questions, and then they were asked to send that back to me. So the next step after that was that we, the instructional support team, the superintendent council, would now look at how the buildings assess themselves. So it took about a couple of weeks. They finally got them in, huge stack of the two rubrics. But I've kind of skimmed through them. Tomorrow, the instructional support team are going to look at it a little bit closely. So what now? We have now the information from the building leadership teams on those two rubrics. And what our goal is now, after tomorrow, is to now narrow the focus. So if you remember the book that I gave you, it has the rubrics and all that criteria. Now you've got to narrow that down because it's so huge. So our job is, based on what the schools have rated themselves, questions and comments that they put in those rubrics, how are we going to narrow the focus? What should be the thing, the items, the action steps, the goals that we're going to say KCK is going to focus on for the next 4 years? Because that is what our accreditation is going to be based on. So Dr. Strickland started us yesterday with reviewing a lot of the data and looking at what I would call more recent hot data for us to look at. And so tomorrow we will continue that work with the instructional support team. And he added the directors and executive directors from the operational side. Because when you look at this work of KISA, it involves the district. It's a system-wide kind of process. So to leave them out would not be appropriate. So they're going to be in the room with us. They were there with us yesterday. They will be in the room with us tomorrow. So our goal is to continue to look at all our data, but also to look at what the schools sent us. And one thing we're going to say is, what do you notice? What are the schools saying that maybe we need to focus on over the next 4 years? So this is perfect timing, board, because this Thursday we get our first OVT visit. The outside visitation team will visit us this coming Thursday. And so believe it or not, we're excited because we have felt very confident all along the way that we have been right in step with the KISA process. Dr. Watson has affirmed that for us. My conversation with people at KSDE has affirmed that for us. And so do we need room to progress, to grow? Sure we do. And the role of the OVT, the outside visitation team, is to coach us, to ask us the hard questions, to push our thinking, to help us think out of the box. So they'll come Thursday. They're going to spend all day with us. And one of the things that Dr. Lane and Dr. Strickland and I talked about was a panel of principals, which the chairperson of the outside visitation team is very excited about. So we'll have 5 principals be in a panel that will address some of the questions that the chairperson has sent me that he would like for them to talk about. And so we're going to include that in our first visit. Our first visit will not be touring any buildings. That's at the request of the outside visitation team. So at the end of that day on Thursday, they will give us feedback on their visit. And like I said, coaching, hard questions, pushing our thinking. So we'll complete our first visit this coming Thursday. So that's where we are. And so I think that we're planning on, after this first outside visitation team, probably in June, we'll come back with another update, getting closer to what are the specific goals and action steps that we are going to take. We are in year 1, so we're right on target. Year 2, which is next year, is the development of an action plan. But one of the things, board, that I will tell you is that we're very committed to is not to have 2 separate pieces of work. So not to have a diploma plus Oh, and by the way, KISA action plan. We believe that both of those things can be merged together, that they go together, and so that we believe in our district priorities so much that we are looking at KISA as, so KISA, how do you fit into this? And KSD has shared with me, because they're very knowledgeable about Diploma Plus, they have said to me, we don't see a problem with you being able to do that. So year 2, we will get into more detailed action plan, action steps, and monitoring, and there'll be 2 visits from the outside visitation team next year. So that's where we are at. Update on KISA. Any questions?
Mrs. Clay, am I recalling correctly that at the end of the visit on Thursday, the outside visiting team will generate a report that they'll share with the state board? And I'm assuming that this board will have access to that information. We'll find out for sure.
Yes, we'll find out for sure.
Madam President?
Yes.
Help me remember, 2 questions, please. One, is there a check midway through that instead of just 1 through 4, and after 4 years, there's the calculation?
The outside visitation team, Dr.
No, actually from the state board, from State Department of Education.
No, what the check-in is the reports that the outside visitation team sends in. So every time they make a visit, they do a report and they submit that. And that's kind of like benchmarking until we get to that last year where we send in all of the documentation into the state. They are the benchmarking vehicle that we use.
So the assumption would be after a visit, you reevaluate what you're doing so that it won't be dinged the next visit?
That's the purpose of them coaching, asking us hard questions, saying, you know, KCK, you might want to consider this, or how might you get this accomplished? So, and those are the kinds of things we will take into consideration every time they visit and we go back to take a look at our work.
And who are the members of the outside visitation team?
We have a principal from Topeka. We have a gentleman who works for the Migrant and Refugee Center in Wichita. We have a former educator who has worked for Kansas Learning Network before, and our chairperson is also a former member of the Kansas Learning Network and a former educator.
And their names?
Sarah Lucero is the principal from Topeka. Kathy Esquivel is the former person with Kansas Learning Network. Tyler, oh gosh, knew you were Dr. Wynn, I can't remember his last name.
Tyler something.
It's Tyler, I'll get you the last name. He is the one from the Migrant and Refuge Center. And Jim
Carlskin, Dr. Jim Carlskin.
Yes, Dr. Carlskin is our chairperson. And board, I want to remind you that in order for them to be on the outside visitation team, they had to go to training. And they received a notebook that guides their work, guides their visits that they come, guides what reports we have to have done, guides kind of how they assess us along the way.
And if for some reason between now and 4 years, if one is incapacitated, do we have the opportunity to choose the successor?
No, well, my understanding of that, Dr. Wynn, is that if for some reason a person can't fulfill their duties, they contact the chairperson, and the chairperson talks with us, and yes, we can come up with some names of some people we'd like to see as a substitute.
So the answer is yes, we have the opportunity.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Brown, did you?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Clay. I got a couple of questions. On the evidence-based practices, you say of the 4, 2 were selected.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Could you explain that process again?
We had all the principals and instructional coaches from all the schools come in for a meeting, and Mr. Brown, we did what we call a protocol. So we started with our data, which they're familiar with, went through the process of we call the RAN report, which kind of gave us that predictable data that will tell us about our graduation rate. And so looking at our priorities that we are currently under, and then looking at what's in here and saying to the principals and coaches, and also too, I will say this, Mr. Brown, we also had other central office people, like people from the curriculum department was in there, people from the ESL, special ed, so we could hear all voices in this work. And so they looked at this And so their goal was, so based on our data, based on our work, based on our history, and based on what you see here, what are the 2 R's that we need to focus on? You can only pick 2. The state says 2. So what are the 2 R's? So they talked in their tables, and then we allowed them to spread out and talk a little bit more. And then, as I said, Ms. Ryder developed some kind of technology thing where they could punch in their vote, if you will, and some comments as to why they chose that.
I see, okay. You know, it appears that, you know, relationships and relevance kind of incorporate the other 2 areas too. You know,
Some
so
overlap.
that's pretty prudent to select those 2 because responsive culture and rigor kind of are merged into the other 2, the ones that were selected. Is that not correct?
Yes, there are some overlapping.
Right.
There's some overlapping.
Okay.
And so if you have looked through this, Mr. Brown, you'll see that some of the R's have many criteria. And so really being realistic and practical, you know, asking our schools, their leadership teams to really help us narrow this focus so that we can really get a handle on the work that we need to do.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Mrs. Clay. Those are my communications, Board.
Madam President? Yes. I'd like to add, after reviewing, I did a quick scroll through the 3,000 pages that were on the library, I think, documents. I can't remember exactly where they're located. But I'd like to add a request as we move into this budgetary period. I'd like to add a request to the list of contracts, because when I ran through those items, they look like payables. But I'd like a list of contracts with the name, amount, duration, and ethnicity of just a simple contract, XYZ. Amount, duration, ethnicity, and do you understand, Madam President? Are you asking a question?
Well, we're still in the communication.
No, I'm responding to Dr. Lane's communication.
She's referring to the report we provided Ms. Page.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's already in our docs. I did a quick scan through. And so, again, as we're moving into this budgetary time frame, I think it would be helpful for us also to ask to refine that list. Same time frame, but a list of contracts, name, amount, duration of the contract, and the ethnicity.
We can certainly do that, Dr. Nguyen. The names, the amount, duration of contracts. We do not collect ethnicity, and I'll ask the attorney to guide if I misspeak, but I don't believe that we're legally allowed to do so. Would you help clarify, Mr. Goheen?
I guess what I'm trying to track is, when you mean contracts, what are you asking for
And
specifically?
if we make a contract, okay, as I scroll through the items that are on those that Dr. Lane submitted, one would see a payables to, let's say, Hy-Vee. Do we have a contract with Hy-Vee, or is it just expenditures?
We don't necessarily have a contract because they're a supplier, they're a
Exactly.
vendor. So under $20,000, it wouldn't be a formal document. However, we can sort by the type of expense that it was. So
Right, so go back.
I'm not sure if it's
Mr.
contract
Goheen's
or
question would be a contract. You make a contract with X to provide Y for the amount of Z for 2 years.
An independent contract is
So
that
a formal written contract
Correct.
you're talking about.
question of information by ethnicity. We don't ask for that. We don't.
I don't think we track that. I mean, we do have some indications of whether people have, or if it's a business, whether they have a designation like an LBE or an MBE, but ordinarily on most contracts, we don't have that information.
Okay, so in the long run, over the years, we don't know if we are purchasing, well, I guess if it's out of state, you know you're purchasing out of state. So if the contract is with XYZ on 123 State Avenue, you know it's local. Kansas City, Kansas.
If a business identifies themselves as local minority women, we have that. They have to self-identify.
Right.
So we have that. But I don't believe that, we didn't understand that that was what Ms. Page was asking for, but certainly we can refine it if that's what's helpful to the board.
Well, as I say, it's invaluable, the amount of information that you provided. It's eye-opening. So I would hope every member takes some time to review it. But as we move forward, if you can't provide ethnicity, you can't provide it, but you can surely provide the name, amount, duration. Thank you.
And just one more point of clarification, for expenditures under 20,000.
Correct.
Okay.
So that contract would be, like, would even include consultants, I would think.
Any formal independent contract. Mhm. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
please. Thank you.
That it?
That's yours.
Okay. Under my report, I just like to, getting near the end of the school year, and the different programs are going on, attending the choir festivals and all that. I'd impress upon the other board members, if they have time to, when it comes up, to try and attend. It's very eye-opening to see how our students have progressed and the great work that the teachers are doing with our students. Last night I attended the PTA's principal and president's dinner last night, and it was dedicated to Dr. Lane. A thank you for Dr. Lane. It was very well attended, and that's all I got to say. Any other board members have any reports they'd like to make?
Silver City's had a couple of really good music concerts with their kids. They had kindergartners and first graders. It's always fun to go watch the littlest ones. This coming Thursday night is our harp ensemble concert. It's going to be down at the Rosedale Mennonite Church on Southwest Boulevard, Merriam Lane. It's going to be really wonderful. And then, as we all know, the 1st of May is our elementary music festival. But like Ms. Jones said, there are so many end-of-the-year music programs at our schools, including softball games, which there are several going on tonight, and soccer games. So if you can get out, even just for a little while, the kids really enjoy seeing board members at their events. And the teachers, it makes them feel very valued when we show up at their events.
Any other board? Yes.
Since we're still under the category of communications, I've received about 3 or 4 calls, and it didn't dawn on me that we hadn't determined I'll call closing the loop. The calls I received concern when the board will have a final report from the listening tour. And so probably before we leave tonight, I'd ask that we discuss that and determine when we will get together to write a report and recommendations to the superintendent. I think that we need to respond to the community so that they will know we were serious about their concerns.
Okay, thank you.
That's all the communications I received.
Any other board member?
Yes. I just wanted to comment in regard to the listening tour. We want to thank everyone who came out, everyone who listened, and there were mixed comments on it, but the main thing we wanted to hear, and we were told when we were running for office, that people wanted to have an opportunity to share their concerns. And that was the key issue, to give them an opportunity to share, and if they had any ideas that could make it better, we wanted that as well. And I thought most people, for the most part, did an excellent job. And we got to continue to work at this to make it better. I also had the opportunity to attend the KCK Chamber of Commerce luncheon, and it was good to see how Missouri and Kansas, our 2 cities, are working together to better life for everyone in our community. And I thought it was vital when they said that everyone should have a piece of the pie. Now that's a different conversation, and that's crucial because people have to be able to take care of themselves. And the fact that the business community recognized that, and our mayors are working together with the business community to make it a better place and to give people an opportunity to support themselves. Because And some of the things we got from the listening tour, there were some people who were struggling. And the fact that our teachers, our janitors, our bus drivers, everybody is reaching out, everybody's sharing, and sometimes they don't get the credit that they deserve. And people are helping, and that's a plus, because that's what it's going to take, and for everyone to make it. I also attended the Star Teacher program. We have some excellent teachers, and I wish we could give every teacher an award, because it's not an easy job. You're kind of danged if you do, and you're danged if you don't. But the great thing is, people are trying, and that's the key. And they're working to make our kids the best that they possibly can be. And they're giving a lot of themselves financially, emotionally, and so forth. So I commend them for that. Also, I had the pleasure to see the exhibit today that was presented from Central Middle School, and I was even more honored because the young lady who sponsored that, I taught with her for 5 years at Central, and she's really excited about doing this, as well as robotics and how do we improve our community and helping the kids do that as well. And then finally, I had the opportunity to go to Harmon, and I talked to the administrative staff. On March 20th, I made a great error. In describing myself, I used a word that I shouldn't have used, and I thought I was kind of making fun of me, but in the process, I hurt someone, and that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to lift up, not tear down. And when you make a mistake, you got to be man or woman enough to say, hey, I blew it, and I did. But that's not what I'm here for. Those who know me know that I really care about kids, and I want nothing but the best for them. And the principal, Mr. Marcos, was responsive and appreciative. And I also went to the teacher of this young man and talked to her as well. He wasn't at school that day, but I think we have to own up, and that's what I want to do. And my role is to get better. And we learn, and it's all a process. So I wanted to say that, and to anyone I may have offended, again, I apologize. And the key is, and it's the good thing is we have to check each other. And I appreciate the check. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Wanda.
I want to share something as well. I attended the PTA celebration last night, which Dr. Lane was honored. It was a really nice event to see PTA come together from various schools and to see their goal of having a PTA at every school. So it was really exciting to see the celebration last night of everyone, and also there were a number of pictures taken. I think Janie was interviewed on the screen, and so they did a short clip just to tell about Dr. Lane and what she's done throughout the district. So it was really great to see. It was really nice to see the deep involvement. I attended a couple of soccer games. I had a parent contact me with a concern about the updating of our website to reflect the student activities in the district, so I reported that to Dr. Lane as well. I attended some soccer games for Rosedale, Coronado, and Sumner. Those soccer games were interesting. I got a chance to talk to a lot of the parents and get some feedback, in which I forwarded to Dr. Lane. Some concerns that some of them had relating to staffing and things of that nature. I also was able to forward that to Dr. Lane for further investigation. And I want to encourage people that the formal grievance process is in place. So if you do have concerns, you want to go through the formal grievance process so that it can be documented and so follow-up can properly be done. I also contacted Dr. Lane to get additional information about some of the high school leaders to get information relating to the performance. So I was advised via, here it says I can't personally request individual evaluations, but I would ask that that information be available to all board members so that we may see the evaluations of our leaders, our principals, so we can know how they're evaluated and see the evaluation of principals to when we get feedback, we'll know how our principals stand and their evaluation so that we can see how they're graded, because I personally haven't seen any evaluations from the principals, and I think that as board members, we should have information relating to evaluation of of the principals. So I will ask Dr. Lane or board president, whichever, if we're able as a board to get evaluations of principals.
It might be something we want to talk about further in executive session with the attorney.
That's fine.
I also had some parents contact me about trauma opportunities for the situation that happened at Washington. A couple of students felt very traumatic after that event. So again, I contacted Dr. Lane so that we could see what help is available for students who may be experiencing some type of trauma related to incidents that happened in our school. So I forwarded that information to her. There was a gentleman who contacted me related to harassment that happened as a result of the talking tour. Again, I forwarded that information to Dr. Lane. I believe the board got a copy of that information so that you would be aware. But I really appreciate the public feeling open enough to contact me about issues that are relating, because I will follow the process and report them. If you want, if some people have been asked me to keep it confidential, or some people have said, go ahead and use my name. But I just appreciate people feeling comfortable enough to be able to contact me and tell them the issues that they may be having, because I will forward that information promptly to Dr. Lane. I'm sure she's like, okay, another one, great, yay. But when I'm out everywhere, people really give me feedback, and I take that to heart, and I really will forward that information on so you can get answers that you need.
Madam
Yeah,
President,
sure.
just like to say that I had an opportunity to visit Eisenhower Middle School as well as Coronado Middle School. And at Coronado, they are really stressing the Marzano teaching technique. I had an opportunity also to attend the civic luncheon over in Kansas City, Missouri, as well as the same day in the afternoon coming here for the Star Teacher Awards. And as Ms. Page has said, teachers are special, and they do deserve some special recognition. And it was an honor for me as a first-time board member to stand there and to be able to applaud those young people, or those teachers who have done very well in receiving their awards. I also had an opportunity to attend our last listening tour, and was really impressed with the comments that were made about Fairfax Alternative School, and particularly with the letter that was given by a grandmother who was grateful the fact that her granddaughter had attended there, because now the girl is now working within our city, and she did receive great support from the staff that was there, so much so that I shared the letter with Dr. Lane. I also had an opportunity to go on a very cold day to the groundbreaking of Welborn, which will be the new facility that's being there. And there was a lady who actually attended the original building, the school building that was presented at Welborn, and I was grateful for that. I'm very proud to be a board member. I'm still listening and learning, but I am really working to do the best that I can for all stakeholders.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Now, the reports of the superintendent.
Thank you very much, Board. We're ready for item A, and we ask that you accept as an informational item an update on progress of the District Welcome Center and the Saturday Family Language Academy, as submitted by Mrs. Clay and Mrs. Scott.
Good evening, Board, Madam President, Dr. Lane. Forgive my voice, it is the weather. Just want to give you a quick update on where we're at with the Welcome Center, as well as our Saturday Family Language Academy. We opened yesterday with our Welcome Center, and we actually had families come to enroll. Awesome. Our first family had students at elementary, middle, and high school. Wow. So they were able to come to just one place to enroll the entire family.
That's awesome.
Our process at the end of enrollment is we ask them a survey. How do you feel about the process? Was this helpful to you? Would you rather go to the school to enroll? So we want to gain feedback from our community. Our Saturday Family Language Academy has been operating for 3 weeks now. Our first Saturday, we had 200 participants. The second Saturday with the weather, we dropped a little bit, and it was before Easter. We went down to 160. And then this past weekend, again with the weather, we were down to about 140. We hope to pick back up, but it seems like every Saturday it's cold. But our adults are our consistent attendees. We have 3 adult classrooms, and the adults do not want to take a break. So they're wearing our teachers out.
I bet.
But that's a good thing. We provide snacks and as well as a meal at the end of the morning. And we provide transportation to families who need transportation to Hazel Grove Elementary. And we, at various points, have different community resources available. On the first Saturday, we actually had the public library there. So if a family wanted to sign up to gain a library card, they could do so. I wanted to share pictures. So our students get gym time, and we rotate them through. So here's our littles. And we keep the littles in the cafeteria, and that's generally where you're going to find most adults because they like hanging out there with them. The day before Easter, the custodian, and I will also add, Hazel Grove Elementary has been wonderful. And the custodian there last Saturday said, "Hey, there's a bunny in the building. Can I bring it in?" And it was the quietest that cafeteria had been because they were fascinated with that bunny rabbit. We have a K2 room. You see, on average in that K2 room, there's about 35 students. Our middle school room, they're all boys. And we have a dynamic teacher that handles those boys. And we have a 3-5 room, and that's also one of our larger rooms. They average anywhere from 28 to 32 students every Saturday. 3 adult rooms, you see the variety. We even, if you want to take your child with you, you don't want to keep them in the cafeteria with us, feel free to take your child into the classroom as well. I wanted to also show you, a video that was made, and it was made by one of our ESL family advocates. Okay, thank you. As I stated, I did not create that. It's not a Kristen Scott film. I don't have that type of talent. So I appreciate my entire team, not only with Saturday Academy, but with the Welcome Center, and also the collaboration with the Welcome Center with Student Services, Early Childhood, parents as teachers. Everyone here at the central office has really chipped in. We are trying to meet the needs of all of our families in the district. Just want to make them feel welcome and show them the KCK way from the moment they arrive.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Ms. Scott, I came to the first Saturday Academy, and you're correct. Those parents wanted to learn. They were on task. They didn't want to take a break. They were just so intense. It was really wonderful to see. For a first day, I thought everything looked so smooth. I couldn't believe how you guys pulled that off.
We were concerned. We had 450 people sign up to attend, and so those numbers, it was a good problem to try and work through. So we actually, my whole team, the day before, we came together and we kind of revamped what we were going to do. And we redid the schedule, created those rotations, because we didn't want the gym to be overwhelmed. We didn't want the cafeteria to be full and not be able to serve everyone. So, like I said, my team, I have probably the best team at the central office. And that's not to say that other teams are not great, but we chip in. We do whatever is necessary so we can make sure that we meet the needs of our families.
It was a wonderful experience. And you're right, everyone wants to be in the cafeteria where the babies are.
Yes, that's generally where I hang out. On the second day, a gentleman showed up with his children. He came late, and he said, I can't stay, but I want to go down and I want to talk to my teacher because she gave me homework last time, and I want more homework. Oh, and so I took him down. He talked with our teacher. She said, here's what we're doing. And then he was back last Saturday. So just hearing that and seeing that, the kids, kids don't want to come to school on Saturday, but we make it fun and we make it interesting for them to be there.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Very well done, Ms. Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board, you've talked a lot about and recognized the need for us to really look at what we're doing in our discipline practices. So I'm pleased to have Ms. Garcia Stewart come back to guide us through the District Student Code of Conduct and Parent Handbook. Just a reminder, these are your policies, so they really will set the stage and guide staff on what you want to see done, and then they'll come back later with plans for implementing. Ms. Stewart.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Madam President, Dr. Lane, thank you for the opportunity to return to you. And again, this is the second read. So some of this information may be familiar with you, but again, it's just the second read this evening. Just to reiterate, our work has focused on the district priorities, clear goals, high expectations, and effective relationships. I wanted to start this evening with the board just as a follow-up from the previous Code of Conduct and Parent Handbook presentation. So there was an inquiry around the data, and so I wanted to share also to frame the information that I'm going to share that we do have 86% of our students without an infraction in our district. That means they haven't received any office referral. We have 92% of our student population without a suspension. So I wanted to make sure and share that information with you to focus on the data. But also as a follow-up, there was an inquiry around what is the frequency and who's responsible and responding. So the two most frequent occurrences are under Class 2. That's defiance of authority and gross disruptive behavior. So I know that you received the first semester report around one of the indicators of social emotional relationships and the suspension rate. So I just wanted to share that as a reminder, and I know that you will soon be receiving additional information around the third quarter report. In addition to the follow-up in your handbook, which you have a new copy of the Parent Handbook and the Student Code of Conduct, added was the Diploma Plus Academy information on page 20 in the Parent Handbook, and then Student Team Club information on page 43. And this afternoon, I also received additional feedback. Thank you, Mrs. Humphreys, and I will have time now after this one to add that to either the third read and or final approve as we move forward. So I wanted you to know that I also received that. Thank you. This evening, as I take you through the presentation, again, it will talk about just what our focus is around the common language, the restoration of relationships, and then I'll just take you through some considerations for the board this evening as I move through Class 1, 2, and 3 again, and 4, as it relates to the policy. So if you will, I will be referring to the Student Code of Conduct. And so I'll take you through Class 1, and this also relates to the follow-up in terms of the frequency which I responded to and then who responds. So class 1 are behaviors that disrupt the learning environment. So
See if we could give the board a chance to get to that place in the document.
Sure, I'm sorry, I apologize.
No, that's okay. So board, if you let Ms. Garcia know when you found that page. Do you know the page number by any chance?
Page 6.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody there?
No.
Which one?
Page 6 of the Code of Conduct. Thank you.
And just slow me down whenever. This is common language for me, so just let me know when I need to pause. So class 1 behaviors are that disrupt the learning environment, and so it's the classroom teacher that is the first level of intervention to correct class 1 behaviors. Class 1 offense may warrant an office referral. However, the teacher, again, is responsible for responding and correcting the behaviors. And so as you look at page 6, and as I take you through the rest of the presentation, the policy as it stands right now is in progressive order. So you'll notice that in class 1, those are behaviors that can be redirected from the classroom teacher. So just the first one, I won't read all of them, but the first one, for example, is academic dishonesty, cheating, and forgery. So as you look at those, page 6 through 7, you'll see that there are 11 listed. And also with me in the audience is the Code of Conduct Committee. I don't want to be remiss in identifying that they've been really supportive of the work and the presentation. So for class 1, again, the teacher being primarily responsible for responding, we focus on reteaching the expected behavior, reinforcing positive behavior, and or providing appropriate grade level responses. So again, in progressive order, as it stands, it's not an inclusive list, but they can respond to any of the interventions or responses on, and you'll find those on page 7 and 8.
I have a question. Under
Yes, ma'am.
excessive tardiness, so late arrivals to school and or leaving before the end of school. So we're putting this ownership on students that if they're late to arrive to school, that we're going to refer them to the office? Or leave early, or could you clarify?
Absolutely. And I will qualify, and I think as we move through the policy piece, I'll be able to speak to much of the implementation if it's the board's consideration to have me return. But when we think about the relationships, we hope that that relationship is established with the teacher and the student as to why they're late, what's happening at home, what are some of the occurrences that are in relationship to why they might be late, what's happening, have they been displaced, has there been a move, is there a transportation issue? And so much of what I hope to forecast is that I can return to talk about all of the things we're doing to provide wraparound services with students.
Right, and I just also want to make mention that, again, this is at a very high level, does not appear or at, if they're reading at an 8th grade or 9th grade level, that it will be understandable for our parents and our students. So again, that's a concern that I have overall.
Thank you, Dr. Yeager. And it was actually toward the end of my presentation, but we did have both the Code of Conduct and Parent Handbook assessed in terms of the readability. And you're correct, it's not an 8th grade level. What I encounter and what I hope to present to the board is that much of this is policy and the ESI statutes related in there. So that's language that I'm not able to change. So again, I will defer to the board around the policy and perhaps even Greg, because that's some of the language that's unable to change. But you are correct in terms of the readability.
So if you could provide any type of solutions so that our parents will have a clear understanding, or that our students will have a clearer understanding, if you have any solutions to that. It doesn't have to be right now. I'm just saying if there's alternatives.
I will work on that and also look for Greg's guidance too around things I know can't be changed around the language that's in our policy with, like ESI, that's our state regulated. So I will get guidance on that and follow up.
You spoke of your committee. Have you guys talked to the high school, the middle school, elementary principals and asked their view on this and what they would do to change? Has there been a conversation with them?
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Page, so our board reflects a couple of elementary principals. In fact, one is here this evening. Jen Holt, who is our NEA representative that is a representative for teachers. We have a middle school principal. She wasn't able to be here this evening. We have a special education representative that's also here this evening, and high school. So we have and early childhood, I apologize. So we have representation on the committee from early childhood through 12th grade. And my first presentation, I think it was a couple weeks ago, I talked about that we also included teacher survey, teacher input, student input, reflection that we started on almost a year ago to also include student voice, parent voice.
So you've gotten a selective group of principals to be a part of your committee and to be a part of your meetings to give you some feedback. Is that correct, what I'm
A
understanding you
selected group,
saying?
and they go back to their colleagues, talk to them, and it's sort of, they're the representative for that group.
Okay.
But have they ever gone, split up, go to all the schools to talk to them? And I know that's a time issue, but that's something we've been trying to do. Go to the schools, talk to the principals and other individuals to ask, what can we do to make this better? And I think we're going to have to do that in order for it to be effective, because there's a lot of stuff going on, and it just has a domino effect. It affects so many different things if we don't get this right. And I see what we had from last year. There's been some minor little tweaks, but we got some serious issues when it comes to discipline. And we're not saying throw people away. That's not what we're saying. But we got to figure out something. And this bothers me because it just seems like we're just rehashing, bringing it back up, but it's not really working.
Ms. Page, let me suggest, if you would, that Ms. Stewart go through the presentation, and then as a next step, I'm hearing you and Ms. Drew suggest more input, more opportunity for input from buildings, and that can be a next step. That can be a next step.
Thank you, absolutely. Part of what I'll be sharing this evening is consideration from the board, and so I look forward to that feedback. So under Class 1, behaviors, for the board's consideration for Class 1 behavior, short or long-term suspension will not be assigned at any grade level. So right now, that's for the board's consideration for your policy. Again, this is just the second read. So if you now will turn to Class 2, that's on page 9. Class 2, again, if you think about the progression, so these are going to be behaviors that seriously disrupt the learning environment and or while on the bus. So if you look at Class 2, those offenses are on page 9 through 10. And so you'll notice that there are more occurrences or incidences. There are 15, and they become a little bit more serious than what is in Class 1. And so they begin with contributing to or inciting a disruptive situation.
So the statistics you first gave us, did that include incidents that are occurring on the buses? Or is that a separate statistic?
It's separate data. Yes, this included students that are suspended from school. So you can still attend school if you receive a suspension from the bus.
So do we have that data? Did you give us that data relating to school bus incidences?
I haven't, but I will look to get that for you.
Yes, because I would like to know how that correlates to what we're reviewing.
So the interventions and responses for Class 2, again, we still are focusing on the restoration of relationships, reteaching the expected behavior, reinforcing positive behavior, and or provide grade level responses. So in Class 2, an offense may warrant an office referral, but in Class 2, a short-term suspension is included in Class 2. But with the input of early childhood, and we've had the conversation about are we including all stakeholders. Right now, as it stands in the policy, early childhood does not receive an assigned out-of-school suspension. We still work on the reteaching, reinforcing positive behaviors. But for your consideration, we're asking that long-term suspension, which could be up to 186 days, or an expulsion, which is a calendar year, 365 days, are not provided as a response in Class 2. Again, this is the consideration for the board. So now we're in class 3. And class 3, again, as we think about the progression, these are behaviors that seriously jeopardize school order and security. And so school officials treat these behaviors very seriously, and class 3 may include, but not limited to, short-term suspension. And short-term suspension is 1 to 10 days. And now in class 3, long-term suspension is an option. And that again is not to exceed 186 days. So if you look at page 13, these occurrences, these offenses become much more serious than class 2 and then in class 1. And so we still want to be focused on the restoration of relationships, but we also take serious the school order and security. So the responses in class 3, again, are not limited to, you'll see they're in progressive order. We still want to provide as much support as we can for a student. And also all students are responsible for the code of conduct, but we had the conversation previously around students with an individual education plan. And so if those students are previously assigned 10 or more cumulative suspension days in the current school year, they may be suspended, but it's all following the manifestation, and they are required to receive educational services. So again, for the board's consideration, we're recommending that fighting be moved from class 2 to class 3, thinking about the progression of the behavior, that seriously jeopardizes school order, and that inciting to fight is moved from class 2 to class 3, again, thinking about the progression of serious behaviors. So class 4 are behaviors that are considered criminal acts that seriously jeopardize school order and security. And so the establishment of interventions are not required at this level. This is when I depend on my relationship and collaboration with Chief Horn because they are considered criminal acts. And at this level, a 10-day suspension happens pending an expulsion. And so remember that in class 3, a student could receive a short-term suspension anywhere from 1 to 10 days and or up to a long-term suspension. And at class 4, an expulsion is a calendar year. So for your consideration, and these are found on page 18, and you'll see they're much more serious, and which is why I then rely on the expertise of Chief Horn, because they're considered criminal acts such as arson or fire, and the list goes on to page 10. But for the board's consideration, we're asking that false reports or recommending false reports, bomb, or school threat be moved to from class 3 to class 4. So the next steps are for the board to consider the recommendations that were presented to you along with feedback and questions you may have. Again, this is just the second read. I still have the opportunity to come back for a third read and or up till the final approval of the board's policy. What I want to forecast is just that part of the conversation that I heard is what the implementation of the policy. So I will be happy if the board is willing to return to talk about how we're implementing the policy and what we're doing to implement professional development, all of those things that are related to this, but I first need the approval of the policy. So I'll answer any question that the board may have.
I'd like to move that we not accept this, because I think we have some major issues, and we need to really sit down and look at this, because we don't want to keep doing the same thing. And I see this as a problem. And if it's going to stop and we want to work on the environment that our teachers are working on, coming into, and the kids coming into, I think we really need, this is something we really need to go back and reevaluate. So I move that we not accept this until we make the necessary adjustments.
For clarification then, Ms. Page, not accepted as a second read, because you're not
Right.
approving anything yet. It's
Right,
just that
okay.
you're
Well-
seeing it as the second time.
Okay, well, not accepted as a second read until we make some more adjustments and things. Because the way it is now, I just see the same thing coming back next year.
Are there specific things that you'd like to see us change? I heard you say get feedback, but are there specifics that you want to see changed in the document?
Well, in talking to some of the teachers, some of the administrators, the options that we give And we seem to be moving some things from the second to the third to the fourth, that you really need to deal with it at the beginning and the first level to try to put a dent in it, especially the first and second, to keep it to get from getting to the third and the fourth. And they had also mentioned to us, and it's a budget issue, that we have a Fairfax, but why can't we have one for middle school, another one for high school? Because it's the way Fairfax is set up a little differently. But to give the administrators a little bit more room, have one for elementary, have one for middle school and high school. And again, I know it's a budget issue, but if we want to put a dent in some of this, to stop this, because once we can control this better, and again, I think the attendance problem will get better. But these are just, I didn't bring my notes with me, but we have been talking to administrators, and some of the lists, the way the list goes, they'd like a little bit more flexibility. They would like to see that middle school, elementary, or an in-school, after school, so that way if they can't function in the daytime, then hey, maybe it needs to be from 3 to 5 or 3 to 6, but to offer something else, because this is not working.
And also, I think redundant behavior, I didn't see that quite mentioned, as well as what's the grievance process? So we have it from the Code of Conduct, don't harass, don't stalk. But what about resources available for students to have knowledge of what to do if they are harassed or stalked or have a grievance? If that's not in the Code of Conduct, where is it located for students to be able to report information? And also, we have misuse of the 911. Although the P3 app is not readily known or available, I feel there should be some mention of the P3 app to not misuse it as well, or, just some more structure around those various policies.
So let me just reflect out loud, see if I'm on track, because much of what I hear you speaking of is how we're going to implement. What are we going to do to implement different, the alternative systems and that kind of thing? We definitely need to talk in detail about that. Dr. Strickland and the Student Services team led by Ms. Garcia have been working on some thinking around alternatives. What we need to be able to do is build that around what you see as acceptable behavior for kids to stay in school or to be removed to an alternative placement. That's what this particular document is, not to capture all of the interventions, the alternative supports, if you will, but the essence is the hierarchy of intervention that you want to see, the hierarchy of discipline, your policy. So at what point, Ms. Page, as you've had your conversations, and as you've thought about it, what is it at level 2 behaviors that we'd want to start thinking about alternative placements? If that's the case, and it's just a question of wondering, if at level 2, which starts on page 9, you'd like to see alternative placements, then that's the kind of policy decision you could make by saying to us, put alternative placements as an option in class 2 offenses. And then the team has to build the plan on how we're going to do that and bring it back to the board for resources and approval. So that's an example. So you're right. So 92% of our kids have not been suspended. 86 have not been referred. But for those who've been referred, at what point should we be looking at an out-of-school placement, for example? Class 2s?
Okay, but I have a problem with the reporting, because the way it's set up, you can't put them out to a certain degree, or you can't refer them. You can send to the buddy room, you can send to a friend. There's been a, not to send out, and I get that, but that's where I have a problem with the data, because it's somewhat skewed. Because you can't send them out. You can't send them to the office. You have to deal with it right now.
So that's in class 1, right?
Okay.
Are there, looking at class 1, just go back to page 6 and putting on your experience hat as a classroom teacher. Are these the kinds of things that you want the classroom teachers to have strategies to manage, or at what point would you see that they should be referring to administrative help? So, for example, just take a look at number 5, and I just pulled that number because it's right in front of me.
Okay.
Inappropriate computer use. That's right now in Class 1, we ask the teachers to find strategies that resolve that. But are there things on this list that you think should have administrative intervention? If so, then that would need to be added to the list, and then Ms. Garcia would know. No, if we want to, and I think you used the phrase, need to deal with it earlier.
Okay.
What are we dealing with earlier? And that will help us know where to put it in this document, and then to bring back plans to you about how we're going to implement that. I hope I'm making sense.
No, I heard you.
Anyone else at the table, please guide too. But that's what I'm hearing you say. Deal with it early. Which behavior should we be dealing with earlier in the progression of consequences?
Okay. Disrespect.
Disrespect, number 2 on page 6. Okay. So, say more about that, disrespect. You see that it's on the list for teachers to manage, but I think you're thinking that it needs to be in a different place in the document, to go up in the hierarchy.
Disrespect. I still think we need time to review it and think, to be able to really sit down and analyze it without having to come up with things on the spot.
Okay. I have some things. I didn't bring that with me. But I'd like some time for us all to talk about that. And we can bring the other notes and stuff that I got from other people. Because it never seems to be a time to do that.
Fair enough. So Monday you have a special meeting. Part of that meeting could be devoted to this document.
That'll
Where
work.
you can bring your notes and bring your thinking about what needs to be moved around in terms of your policy. That'd be very helpful to Ms. Stewart's team. To know your thinking. Then we can take that out to the field and say, here's what the board's considering, provide us more feedback.
Okay.
And so clarify what opportunities, for instance, if we do take it back, what opportunity do teachers have to give direct feedback?
So Jen Holt spoke last time to that, so it just really depends on the board's timeline, and so I know that she spoke of the initial survey, so those are things that I'm willing to work with her so that we can get feedback, or at least provide the opportunity for all teachers. I would need some time to consider what that may look like, but I appreciate the feedback of including teachers as well, which is why Jen Holt is part of our committee, because then I can rely on her again as the representative for teachers, conversations, just as when we are sharing the code of conduct to the board, she informs teachers of that. So I'd like to be able to work with her without identifying what that is right now and follow up with the board if that's suitable.
And I will possibly recommend some anonymous things. Some teachers have given feedback, and I'm not sure what the fear is going on. I really don't. But many teachers have said, I don't want to be identified. I'll give you feedback, but let's step over to the corner and close the door.
Okay.
So when we think about gathering feedback, SurveyMonkey is a great option. For example, you can't really track anybody. You can put down the categories. You can get the feedback. But we want teachers to know, please give us feedback without the fear of retaliation or something going on. Because this will affect how they discipline in classes, and we need that.
Thank you.
Can I ask clarification
Yes.
on the administrative options on any of them, any category? 1 through 5, 1 through 12, or whatever. Do they have to follow? It says progressive order, but are the persons, teachers, whatever, required to go from 1 to 2 to 3?
So yes, in progressive order, because we're hoping that, to really Mrs. Brownlee-Page's point, that there's been contact with the parent, that a student just isn't simply suspended when we think about relationships, even when you think about class 1 to class 3. So if the behavior originated at class 1 or class 2, or there's a pattern, all of those things that you spoke of, what we're hoping to engage, what I've heard the board say, is that we want to make sure parents are aware. We want to make sure that we say to a parent, here are all of the menu of options that we try to resolve this at the school level, and we need your partnership and/or community partnerships. And that does get a little bit into the implementation, but here are the menu of options that we provide as an option for parents. We certainly can't make recommendations. Parents still are the primary caregiver, but we can provide them a menu of options that help to address what we may see as trauma or as conduct issues. And so That's why it's in progressive order, so that a parent, even as you have heard in the listening tours, don't just feel that the only option is suspension. We want to, again, restore those relationships and allow trust to be established, and to help the parents begin to navigate what that may look like in the classroom and in the school. When we get into class 4, those behaviors that are criminal acts, as I indicated, as the policy states, that might not be a time to talk about an intervention or what supports, because we have to think about the school safety, but then I really rely on Chief. But that's a long answer to yes, but I wanted to provide some context to
Right,
that.
because the question was, even for class 1 response, can the teacher go directly to 5 without going through 1 through 4?
Let me look, just so I forget.
Modeling redirection, using visuals, consult with colleagues, parent, contact. Can they go directly to 5?
We hope that they're providing an option to reteach that behavior. I mean, they could, but we're hoping to establish some guidelines, and that gets into the implementation, that I'm looking for your feedback, but yes.
Okay, so I don't think that's clear to teachers.
Okay.
Because I was told that they had to follow 1 through 5.
Yeah.
And could not go directly to 5.
And I can testify to that because my son had an incident in the classroom and he told me about it. And I asked the teacher, why didn't you call me? And they said, oh, well, we redirected the student and called me.
Thank you, yes.
Okay.
And that was one of the many things the people that we talked to said. They didn't like the progressive order. They understand, but it didn't really get to the point. And then you have the kids saying, see, nothing happened. Not to say nothing didn't happen, but you got to put some bite into it to make it more effective. And I'm not saying I would strongly agree, you definitely need to call their parents. And that should always be something that you do. Have if you can't call, we used to send certified letters. And then we tried to go and, can you give us some kind of number that works? And we did all of that, but sometimes we never really could get to them. So it kind of jams them up when they have to do it in that order, but it needs to be a little bit more flexibility.
So, Madam President, do you need a second to that?
No.
Okay.
We'll put it on Monday's agenda.
Got it.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
When a student has recurring behaviors and it's generated a suspension, is a condition for his return, is there a mental health or any assessment that is done prior to allowing him to come back to school?
So from a school district's position, we can't refer, make recommendations, but we absolutely align the resources for parents, because I'll need Greg's help when we determine the language around referring or requiring, but we certainly do provide those resources for our families, and we have strong collaborations with Vibrant Health around behavioral health needs, PACEs, but a parent and or legal guardian could certainly decline those menu of options as support.
So it's not a condition?
You can't require, because it's mandatory attendance in Kansas, you can suspend the kid from classes for violations up to the statutory requirements, but upon return, and you can impose conditions upon the return in terms of classroom management, things like that, but you couldn't require somebody to go get treatment before they're allowed to return, because they're allowed to attend public schools.
And help me remember what ESI stands for.
Emergency Safety Intervention.
Can remember.
I know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Ms.
Linda.
Garcia. Board, we're now ready for item C, and we ask that you approve Pebble Go license renewal for elementary science and social studies as submitted by Dr. Strickland and Mr. King, who's coming to the podium. Mr. King, good evening.
Yeah, this is a renewal of a database. We have a series of databases that myself and David Hansen from the library have joined together over the years to provide access for, and this is one geared for kindergarten through third. It gives students the opportunity to see how you can use the internet, but at a reading level and limited text, so it's understandable by the kids. Welcome any questions.
Dr. Lane, I sent you a question relating to this. And one of those questions was, I looked at the Go Pebble out there. Could you explain why some of the other programs that we already have access to is not adequate for what Pebble Go does?
What programs are you referring to that we already have access to?
For example, some of the curriculum that we have access to that we're approving. For just a moment, let me pull it up. So Lakeshore Learning, for example. How?
Lakeshore Learning, I'm not sure that's, I'd have to know specifically what that is.
So Lakeshore Learning Materials and additional information, we're about to approve $13,000 for that. When I went to look on the website, they appear to have similar things as Pebble Go. So I just need additional information as to some of the other resources. Does any of the curriculum connect to ensure that there's resources we're not currently paying for that this will cover? Because we have quite a few different avenues in which we're paying a lot of money for that appear to be similar programs available that's included in those bundles. So I need help in understanding why we're approving this and not using those avenues.
If I can just add, before you answer, Mr. King, the specific payment of bills question is for instructional supplies and materials, so not software.
Right, but they have a software available on that same
So your question is, why are we not using that same vendor?
Right, or how they tie together to each other to make sure that they're aligned. So we have 5 different vendors for third grade class to do these different things. Are they all working together? Are they in conjunction? Or are we not on the right path? Because the statistics is not used by all of the classes because it is increased over the years, but it's not used by all. So what are they using? Are they using existing things? So I just need a little more so I can clearly understand why we need to add something additional.
Right. Well, in terms of Lakeshore, that's probably not purchased out of our department. It's probably supplies purchased by buildings for more things for school. Lakeshore is a huge company that has things beyond software. In terms of curriculum, we use as our main curriculum for science, we use National Geographic, which has, we found that the reading level of some of their online resources were not of high quality. The texts that we have are excellent for the kids to have, the actual books that we use with them. But to supplement that, we chose 3 years ago to go with Pebble Go. It has that more additional information at a student reading level. And for considering other similar software, the price is very good for what we get for it.
So we have National Geographic and then we have Pebble Go.
Right, as a supplement to go with National
So
Geographic.
does Pebble Go not have the same tools as National Geographic?
No. And in fact, we're not going to find, in very rare instances, will we find one company that's going to provide us everything we need. There's going to be things, we have a unique population with a variety of needs that we bring in resources to address those students' needs, as well as bringing in resources that provide, what we do is we take the approach of bringing resources that provide a main foundation, and then other things that we need to supplement to improve, because not all students learn the same way. That's how we decide to bring those other items in.
Has any information been surveyed to the teachers as far as why they're not using it or what supplements they're currently using to give feedback?
We do that. We have several cadres representatives of the teachers that we're constantly working with to get feedback on it. In fact, I can't tell you for sure what teachers are not using any resources at any time. That's, we can ask, but sometimes they'll say yes, they will. Other times they'll come in with others, but we're required to provide a basic foundation of resources for the schools. So we do that, but we don't say that you can't go out and find something else if you would like to supplement yourself as well.
Thank you so much.
I got a question. Thank you, sir. When you say you're asking to approve the purchase of student access, Yes. For all elementary schools, 26.6. Would this be the same as a license?
Yes.
Okay, for all?
The way the license is set up, we have to, they charge by school.
Okay.
But we have it set up through the library system that they can only access it through the school's library site.
Okay.
So the public library side, they can't use it, and that's how we limit it. Otherwise, they would charge a lot more. We don't have a bigger outside. That's how we can keep some of the prices low on these, if we keep it limited to our students we serve.
And this is for 1 year?
For 1 year, yes. And for 4 databases.
Okay.
And so that goes back to my issue of usage. We're paying for some licenses that we don't even know are being used or if schools are utilizing them. So we really, although, you know, it's a great purchase, but who's really using it? Who's not using it? Who, you know, because we're paying for those amounts, but I just feel like we need to really know who are using it and if we really need all of them or if we need to give more availability to let them know about the usage, but just some tracking of data so we can know.
Yeah, the resources, the availability of them, these are listed and specific units are identified in 31 of the units within our pacing guides, which is a curriculum that all teachers have access to. So they have, in fact, within the pacing guide, there's a link that takes them right directly to Pebble Go. However, if you would like us to do a survey of our teachers and find out what resources they're actually using and what they're not, we'll be happy to do that.
Right, because if we're paying for something they're not using.
Well, it shows that we have, you know, for instance, the animals was logged into, that particular database was logged into 52,901 times last year.
Somebody's using it.
Right,
Yeah.
somebody is, but everybody's not.
Well, yeah.
Wow.
Your overall curriculum, right?
Correct.
So at what point in the year do you have all disciplines come together and have this discussion?
I mean, the curriculum department work together at all the time, so it's ongoing discussions. We bring, through our cadres and through meetings we have with principals and teachers, we bring in input. We do not bring in any resource without having it vetted through by a group of representative teachers.
So here we are in April.
Mm-hmm.
So can we think, I won't say assume, but can we think that we then have all covered for next academic year?
What do you mean by all covered?
Just like this, Pebble Go is animal science, biographies, and social studies, and the other curricula. Are we covered now for 18-19 academic year?
Yeah, we have the databases are on different cycles for renewing.
Oh.
So it just depends. At this point, April is when we first adopted Pebble Go. That's when it was introduced to us at the time. So we're on an April renewal. Most of our renewals start about between the 1st and the 15th of July. Most of them go with a natural school year.
So before that time, you'll be able to address the
For the software,
concern for Dr. Yeager.
For the software, I should be able to give you usage statistics. I can't give you usage statistics easily for a textbook unless I ask and survey people that way. But the usage statistics, we can actually pull from the companies. They can give that to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you could
I got a
just,
quick question. Why wasn't the 5th database included in the quote?
They're always trying to sell us more.
Okay,
And we right now don't see that we have a particular need for it, so that's why we're not.
I see. It wasn't included in the quote, the 5th
I mean, it was included, if you looked at the quote, the last thing says, for an additional database, it's not even identified, they'll add another one for us at this point. But we felt we didn't need one, we just didn't want to buy it for the price.
Would we be able to find something when you're doing your research that will cover K through 5 rather than just K through 2? Because I'm assuming this is kindergarten through 2nd grade, correct?
Yeah, kindergarten, 2nd grade, 3rd grade. I've even heard that some of the middle schools, depending on students, especially students who struggle with the language, will dip in and use this resource to help that way.
Right. Because, or if you could find any that is K K through 5, maybe?
Well, we have some other ones that fit the 4th and 5th grade as
Oh,
well.
you have other
We have a
ones.
collection of databases that we use,
For 3rd, 4th, and 5th?
and up through high school. We run the gambit for databases. Sorry?
A lot of companies are creating their software, their materials, over the last couple of years, K through 2, 3, 4, 5. So companies are now, and the reason I believe they do that is because at the primary level, the reading level is different. There's some nuances to that level of development for learning for kindergarten, 1st and 2nd graders that is different for 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. So we've noticed over the years that a lot of companies now split it, and they go, and sometimes now we've seen more of pre-K, K1, and then 2 is by itself. So, Dr. Yeager, a lot of the companies are developing materials and software like that.
If I heard you correctly, if these licenses are only for these elementary schools, how are the middle school people
Because of the way
using it?
the way it's set up, and they know that we use it that way, and the company said that's okay, because it's not a massive use of it, it's for few individuals. So they don't have, they'll always give you a little extra, and they won't police closely, because they want to keep you as a customer.
Thank you.
All right. Need a motion?
I move we approve.
I hear a second. I can't get a second, then we can't.
I think we need more research.
So are you saying we're not going to approve this for the students?
Oh, well. Second it.
I'll second the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposing? Hearing none?
I don't know.
I don't know, I probably need to do a roll call, because I don't know if people voted one way or the other.
Do a roll call.
Roll call for the vote, please.
Maxine Drew.
No.
Carol Brown.
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
No.
Brenda Jones.
Yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Yes.
Dr. Wynn.
No.
Dr. Yeager.
No.
All right, thank you.
Board, I just have to say that we have experts that we employ to do this research and bring you recommendations, and they don't mind questions, but you have just now shut down access to databases for students that they need. You don't need to respond. I just want you to think about the fact that we have experts in curriculum who work very hard to bring you the recommendations that they think are best for our kids. Keep that in mind, please, moving forward. Those are all the reports, Ms. Jones.
All right, thank you. Board update, Carol Levers, please.
Good evening, Mrs. Jones, Board, Dr. Lane.
Good evening.
A couple of things that I want to share with you. The renovations at West Wyandotte is coming to a closure. Tomorrow we'll be walking through the library. We're planning to do a soft opening on Monday, just so everybody is excited to see the new West Wyandotte Library. Two items that stem from our budget meeting that you've asked me to explore. We have started conversation of growing our own initiative, and we've asked to collaborate with the School of Library and Information Management at Emporia State University, which is the only American Library Association accredited school in the state of Kansas. and it is affordable and designed for non-traditional students. I have been a non-traditional student, and I know what it is to have support. Over 20 years ago, the American Libraries Association afforded me the opportunity to do our MLS. We need to create librarians to grow not just into professional roles, but also leadership roles within our institution. With me, I went as far as to invite a guest, and it's the Dean of School and Library Information Management, who's been patiently waiting to share with you how we could collaborate on this item. Also, you've asked us to send invitations to households, to invite people to share what they would like to see in the new main library. And dates that we've decided on is for Saturday, April 28th, Monday, May 7th, and Wednesday, May 16th. And that will, if you approve of those dates, we'll be able to send out those invitations as soon as possible. Now, without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Wusep Zhang, and he's the Dean of School of Library and Information Management. Will be able to explain to you how the collaboration will work, and if there's any questions that you need to ask, he's the expert on all the questions. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me. I drove from Emporia to support the libraries in Kansas City, Kansas. I'm very happy to do that.
Okay. Can you do that?
And Carol is one of our distinguished alumni in Kansas. We have, you will see my little kind of cheat sheet here. And we have 6 locations of instruction from Portland, Oregon to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, including 2 locations in Kansas, state of Kansas. And one of our kind of proud points is recently happened. The state librarian of Missouri recently appointed and is our alum. And South Dakota and Utah state librarian also our alum. So we are assured and we believe in our quality of education in professional librarianship. So our school has a long history since 1902. And I just started my position in July 2016. I was in Milwaukee for 15 years as a faculty member and also as an interim dean for more than 2 years. Then we have unique hybrid instruction. It's not fully online. There are fully online programs which are struggling in placement for graduates. We have kind of half and half online and then face-to-face weekend classes. Usually 2 sessions per class. We have 6 core classes for doing that. And that bond among the peers or also with the professors is last forever for their careers. That's a very important part of our operation. And the other sheet is my current proposal to IMLS, Institute for Library and Museum and Library Services for federal funding agent. I requested $1 million, so fingers crossed. But I have experiences with $500,000 grant from IMLS in Milwaukee, so if we keep pushing this, we will get it. But until then, we have to do something ourselves. And we cannot do our own. SLIM, we call SLIM, School of Library Information Management. We are SLIM, But we cannot do ourselves. We need your help to educate a particularly diverse population to get into the profession, which is very critical for the community's intellectual growth. Without professionals, it's just clerical works, and you just give check out the books or access database. That's all. But with the professional, staffs, you will get a very high quality services with intellectual insights. That helps the community grow, I believe. So how can we make it happen? Fortunately, in Kansas, state tuition is very affordable. We call it cheap. Probably the most affordable level in the nation. Like in Wisconsin, in-state tuition for one semester close to $6,000 in-state. Here is almost $2,000. So it's very beneficial. So for me, why not? Why not get the education? But still, Kansas is a little bit kind of below on the kind of pay scale, I mean, to be honest. So why bother? To some people, why bother? I mean, are we getting raise if I get MLS? Probably not. Then why? Why bother? But again, the professional librarians is very critical in the community's intellectual growth. So how we can kind of encourage people to consider get into the program. So here's my proposal. We have a little bit money from scholarship. So I will use the scholarship money to match from your contribution. So that has been done in many places, as you see, from Coffeyville, Kansas. That's a very small community. They put $300, and I put $300 for one student. They have 2 students sent. And if the Hayes Public Libraries, it's still kind of small community. They sent 2 students and putting $1,000. So I put $1,000 from our scholarship money. So if they can do it, I believe you can do it. In this big community, I heard 120,000? 157. So 160,000 people, this is a huge community in Kansas. As you see, Emporia Public Library put half and half graduate assistantship. So they pay a stipend. We pay tuition waiver. We put tuition. So whatever you can afford, put the money for the future of the librarianship and future of the community. That is my goal for this trip. And again, there are several models you can put. I heard the Carol requested or board considering $9,000 professional development. That is half of the cost of a 1 MLS degree for 2 years, including the books and the trip kind of cost. Okay, the tuition itself is $13,000, which is very affordable. But whatever, I mean, if you can put $9,000, we can actually have 2 students at a time. And so we can actually hire new personnel, new staff member in half-time or full-time with kind of clerical level, but we can build up to the professional level in 2 years, 1 or 2 or 3, if possible. That will help your own community. The school and public libraries is very important, and I'm going for it. We have some flexibility, and as you see, it has been done for more than a year, and it's up to your heart, I believe. And if you love your school, this is school kind of unique situation. School districts covers public libraries. This is for your children, your students. It's for the future again, with professional services to everybody in your community. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
I have a question. Now, you're looking for the school board to participate in a scholarship or for teaching librarians. Is that right?
Particularly for those working already in your libraries.
They're already working in the libraries. Okay. So but you mentioned that the low pay scale in Kansas. Is there a concern, I guess that's the best way of putting it, about retaining those that you train?
Yeah, some of them, my great example is in the central system. We have 7 library systems in Kansas by the statute. Central system has been supporting their paraprofessionals education, professional educations, and they don't care. Some of them left for other states, as you imagine, but many of them actually stayed and appreciate their support and then giving back to your community. And to my knowledge, Kansas City's pay scale is not bad at all. Actually, it's kind of one of the top in Kansas. So they will stay here. And great people, great services. And it's not a small, like a 500 people community. No, this is a big community. I believe they will stay.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Lane.
Thank you, and I just need to, for clarification, the option 1 and option 2. So you're presenting the plans for option 1, option 2, okay? Now, with that in mind, what is the total? It's a 2-year program?
Yeah, $13,000 for 2 years.
Right, but
so
credit hours, how many credit hours?
36 credit hours.
36?
Yeah, so they can finish a little bit earlier. We call it slim fast.
Because you got a fast track and you got a slow track.
Yeah.
All right. So but all of the courses are hybrid.
No, it's 6 core courses, and the other 6 courses are online, fully online.
So the core courses are online.
No, core courses are hybrid, weekly intensive classes, and then the other 6 classes are fully online.
Gotcha. So what's the commitment of the student to be on campus?
You mean how frequently?
Correct.
The 10 hours time, which means Friday evening and Saturday whole day, but only 2 sessions per semester per class.
Okay.
So if you take 2 classes, 6 credit hours a semester, they would travel 4 times.
Okay. So this is like professional development for our employees
to get the
their
professional degree.
MLS?
Yeah, MLS, Masters of Library Science.
In 2 years?
Yes.
And the one option is matching funds. Chart that out, how much actually it is on our end.
If you put half, that would be 6,500.
Okay.
And I will try to match.
You would try to match?
Well, I mean, there is a competition, as you see here.
Okay. And the graduate assistantship collaboration, is it like a pass-through? 7344?
So basically, this is a 20-hour work per week. So to your end or Carol's end, you can save a little bit money in hourly salary. But for that loss, students get the tuition waiver, the full tuition coverage, so which ends up probably $25 per hour kind of payment, considering the tuition. So that's very attractive to a potential student. So you can hire or you can put a current paraprofessional into actually kind of half-timer with benefits on your side, but transfer that $7,000 to us, and then we pay them, the students, directly through ESU system with tuition waiver.
Okay, so that's what I meant by pass-through.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
And I guess this is for Ms. Levers. Does this program start every semester?
You can, but there's also cohorts.
Yes, but fortunately, we have two cohorts in Kansas, one in Overland Park, the other one is Emporia. And Emporia starts in fall, Overland Park starts in spring. So you can actually start anytime.
Anytime.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We thank you so much for traveling here to explain
Thank
the
you very
program.
much.
Thank you. Have a safe trip home.
Thank you very much. Ms. Levers, will you be bringing back more information on how you propose the budget be worked out?
Certainly I'll do, Dr. Lane.
Thank you very much.
And it's premature a little bit perhaps, but do you have people interested in this already? Have you had kind of a
I visited with
informal conversation?
Not promising, but I visited with some potential that I think will be very good. But
To consider.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ready for legislative.
Okay, we're ready for legislative update. David Smith, please.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
A lot has happened since the last time I reported to you. However, I have texts from maybe half the people in this room begging me not to go through all of it. So I'm going to abbreviate it somewhat. Last week, the House and the Senate passed different school funding bills. The Senate bill, which had a number of policy provisions, also provided approximately $250 million over 5 years. The House bill had $522 million over 5 years. There were a lot of people who believed that even the House bill was not sufficient, particularly given the 5-year time frame and the fact that if you consider inflation on an annual basis is somewhere between 70 and 100 million. So inflation would pretty much take care of most of that 5-year increase. So there are a lot of people who felt like even the House bill wasn't going to satisfy the court. Regardless, when you have different bills passed by different houses, it goes to a conference committee, and that began on Thursday and went through the day on Friday. During a conference committee, you have 3 members from each house who sit together, and they basically, one house will give a list of what they would like to see in the bill. The other house will take that and respond to it, makes changes, say what they accept, what they won't, and come back and tell them that. Then they'll leave for a while. So every couple of hours, they'll sit down again. So this happened all through the day on Friday. Finally, about 8:30 Friday evening, they decided that they'd come back on Saturday and continue. Saturday was an important day because Saturday was day 90 in the legislative session. And in even-numbered years in the state constitution, the session ends on day 90 unless both houses, by a constitutional 2/3 majority, pass a resolution extending it. So day 90, Saturday at midnight, was scheduled to be the end of the legislative session. So Saturday morning, the House, in order to accelerate the process, because there was some concern that the Senate wasn't really interested in taking up the school finance bill that the House had passed. So to accelerate the process, the House put their bill into a Senate bill that had already passed the Senate. It's that classic gut and go that Bill Reardon loved to talk to you about. The reason for that legislatively is that when it's in a Senate bill that they've already passed and it comes back to them after being passed by the other house, then their only option is up or down. They're not able to amend it. So that would accelerate the process. So they did that, sent it back to the Senate. Meanwhile, the Senate was working other business, and it seemed clear that the Senate intended to work that other business through midnight so that they never had a chance to take up the bill that the House had passed and sent to them. So Senator Longbine, Vice President of the Senate, did a move that didn't curry favor with everybody on his party, because he's a Republican, but basically pausing debate on, they were debating taxes, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a minute, but basically pausing that so that they could read into the calendar the House bill and then be able to take it up. He did that. Then they went back to debate, and they continued to be very slow about their debate. The Senate and the House both passed resolutions on extending the session, but they passed different ones. So then we have what essentially was a legislative game of chicken, where which house was going to adopt the others. The House thought that the Senate would have no option but to adopt their version, which would have been a longer wrap-up session. Part of the reason for that was because if you go through day 90 and you don't have a resolution to continue, all of the work that's being done dies. So anything that had not been signed by the governor by midnight on Saturday would be dead. And the Senate had a lot of things that they cared about, including legislation on guns and the tax bill that they'd been working on and some other things that hadn't been finished. So the Senate would have lost a lot. So the feeling was, well, the Senate is certainly going to accept the House's resolution because they have too much to lose. Well, apparently the Senate didn't think that because they didn't take it up. The House made clear, we thought, that it wasn't going to take it up. So you have this situation on Saturday at 11:30 or so where there's a stalemate, and it's not clear what the resolution would be. Meanwhile, and I want to express my deep appreciation, NEA had a meeting, a conference, a seminar or something in Topeka, and when they finished on Saturday, they all came to the Capitol, hundreds of teachers all wearing red, and they had done this previously, and they just came just to lend their voice and to see what was going on. So you had essentially a building with legislators, lobbyists, and teachers, really all who was in some legislative staff. And it was powerful. They made noise. You could hear that noise in the Senate chamber where I spent most of my time on Saturday evening. But by 11:30, it seemed clear that neither side intended to budge, and we just watched the time kind of slowly drift away as senators, and these were conservative Republican senators who really have said, and they said this during the debate, that the study, which I talked to you about previously, which suggested that the need for public schools in Kansas was somewhere between $1.5 and $2 billion, they suggested that that's not really what that study said, and that the study really said that they had enough money. So these were people clearly not interested in providing more money, and they were just trying to run out the clock. So we're just sitting up there shaking our heads, thinking, oh, I can't, we're going to have to start from scratch on this. And probably at 11:57, Dr. Lane and I have been texting back and forth, what's happening, I'm asking her things. 11:57, I write the text which says, it's over, it's done, we're going to start from scratch. We're looking at my phone, because that's how we tell time these days, and it turns to midnight. I send the text, switch over to Twitter, and up comes a tweet saying the House passed the resolution. So it's like, oh, I was just kidding. I'm kidding. We're still on. So they did pass the resolution, which then allowed things to continue. It's the Senate resolution, and part of the impact of that is an extremely short wrap-up session. Begins on the 26th of April and only goes through May 4. So a much shorter wrap-up session than they usually give themselves, which may create challenges. Now, and obviously, there wasn't a reason other than legislative intransigence to get to midnight on the last day of the session before solving things. So if they want, they can certainly solve things very quickly during the wrap-up session. However, not clear that they want to. So I would tell you that the House, when it passed the school finance bill to send over to the Senate, did it with 63 votes. And just to remind you, you need 63 votes in order to pass anything in the House. So they did it with the bare minimum. So finally, the Senate took up the bill, and after some conversation, voted and got to 21, which is the majority in the Senate. So with no votes to spare in either house, passed a school finance bill. That's now sitting with the governor. One of the challenges, and this was just something that we learned yesterday and heard more about today, was that in their rush, they made a mistake in the bill. And that mistake is going to cost about $80 million in the next fiscal year if it's not fixed. Essentially, Representative Clay Oren, who previously chaired the Education Committee, and Clay used to be on the conference committee last year. He's pretty well known for bringing at the very last minute complicated technical changes which nobody other than Clay really understands in terms of what they're going to do. And he often says, I'm just throwing this out there, just want to give you this idea. In this case, he said it wasn't going to really make any big difference. What it was, he wanted to mandate that every district have a 15% LOB. Dr. Lane has talked to you a lot about the local option budget. You're allowed to go up to 30% or 33% with an election, but he wanted to mandate that every district have 15%. Now, I would tell you, every district in the state already has a 15%, more than a 15% LOB. So when he presented it, he said, well, it's really not going to make a difference, but what he said was, since we mandate it, then it allows the state to claim that as money for schools, and we can show that to the court, and that will be part of our evidence to the court. And that 15% is about $510 million. So it would have been significant. Now, those of you who've been on the board heard Dr. Lane's story about her Aunt Thelma and the notion of moving money from one pocket to the other, and the fact that that does not, in fact, give you additional money. But that was what he was proposing, and it was added. And unfortunately, in adding it, they included special education money which should not have been included. So the result was an $80 million cut. And that's in the bill that's sitting before the governor. Our expectation is that the governor will sign it and then ask the legislature to go back during the wrap-up session to do a technical fix to it. The challenge with that is, as I mentioned to you, neither house had an extra vote. Each house passed with the constitutional majority to pass a bill. So we suspect, now, the right thing to do would be to say, okay, we know what you meant. That's not what was written, so let's pass what you meant. Not clear what obstacles might be thrown up, what negotiations might happen in order to get to those numbers again. So there's concern that even though something has passed, and even though we're concerned that what has passed is not going to satisfy the court, that we still may not be done. So that session will begin on the 26th. Meanwhile, I mentioned that the Senate was debating taxes and cutting taxes, and they ended up cutting about $500 million in taxes. And I would remind you that we hear all the time that one of the reasons we can't do more for public schools is we don't have the money. So the same people making that argument voted for $500 million in tax cuts. Their argument was it was because there were changes in federal tax law, and those changes would either trigger a bounty for Kansas or should be given back to the taxpayers. The changes would increase the standard deduction and would accelerate the ability to itemize deductions on Kansas tax returns for medical expenses, mortgage interest, and property taxes. So that passed the Senate. Not clear at all what will happen with it when it comes to the House during the wrap-up session. The other thing that passed the Senate was Continuing Resolution 5029, the constitutional amendment. And I've talked to you about that. One of the things we didn't know was what it would say, what the language would be. The phrase that really jumped out at me is suitable provision for finance of educational interests of the state, which has been the language we've depended on for years in order to bring suit against the state. So that suitable provision of for finance of educational interests of the state is exclusively a legislative power. In other words, we, the legislature, they, get to determine what suitable means. It would carve the court out of it. So the authors of that amendment believe. There are a number of people who, we've talked about that there's adequacy and equity, who, since equity has been a part of every single school funding lawsuit that we've had, who think that this wouldn't do what they suggested might, and that there still would be a case to bring with regard to equity. However, this is of concern. There were a number of groups that have lined up behind it, including the Kansas Farm Bureau, Kansas Livestock Association, the State Chamber, Americans for Prosperity, and one group that actually had worked with public school advocates last year and seems to have gone off the boat, the Contractors Association. So some very, very high price lobbyists involved in lobbying for it on the Senate side, and we expect ultimately on the House side. The House did not take it up, and the Speaker, the suggestion was that it might not be taken up unless there was a special session because the court kicked the funding case back to the legislature. So that is sitting out there, and it has passed the Senate. So a lot happened. Still work to be done, and of course, all of this has to go before the court. Briefs are due on April 30, and the court will have a hearing on May 22nd at 9 a.m. to look at the briefs from both sides and determine whether or not adequacy has been satisfied. Questions? Yes, Dr. Wynn.
Well, thank you. And we know you lost sleep.
So did you.
And we all did. Can you explain how the ARN 15% LOB was the language, did it make it into the version of dedicating it to at-risk programs as he proposed in the committee?
I don't think so, and that wasn't the issue that has caused the $80 million problem.
No, yeah. I know that.
Let me check on that.
Yeah, we've got to look at that because
Okay.
it has a potential of perhaps addressing equity. For Madam President, for the information of the board, I and all Wyandotte County delegation and at least 20 or 30 of the 40 Democrats voted no. We heard from experts. We really didn't consider the Taylor cost study, because it was a little, let's say, it was described as cutting edge. So it's probably a little too hip for us. But based on the cost studies previously, and the last time we had a constitutional amount, if you adjusted for inflation, it would bring your base aid to about $5,000. What is the base aid in this bill?
It gets, I think it ends up at like 47 something after.
Yeah,
5
but
years.
if it was adjusted for inflation, it'd be $5,000 the first year. So we had heard from experts. We had looked at the two cost studies, and we offered a $50 million bump. And actually, when you talk about new money, it's only about $300 million new money. Right. Now, why you say new money? It was, let's say, 200 was already appropriated.
Senate Bill 19 from last year.
So everything is stackable. But the state board had come in with $800 million.
Right.
The Taylor study was out of sight, and we felt the CPI, the inflationary price, as well as we pay Schools for Fair Funding. Mm-hmm. And while Bill Brady did not say, don't vote for this, he provided data that they did not believe it was adequate.
Right.
while you're texting Dr. Lane, I'm calling Dr. Lane, saying, and I must have sent you 15, I'm lying now, 3 emails. What's our number?
Felt like 15.
I know. And when you said, oh, 225, I'm like, no, that is not our number.
We were not communicating, no.
Yeah. So one needs to know, and we also told KNEA teachers, we voted no and why. Because the rhetoric was, thank the enemies. And half of those 63 are people who do not support public education. A number of the others were let's just get it out. Well, that was the attitude they had last year, just get it out. Well, we were back in June and July, whenever we were, and you know, we may be back again. So I go on record to explain why we voted no. One other thing, and I don't understand why it happened. I'm not asking why it happened. I don't want it to happen again. This component, this Landwehr mental health component, I copied both of you all the correspondence there at the end between Landwehr and myself. She claimed, Dr. Lane, we were on board. When you attended meetings with whomever, provided schools, provided money. You want to explain the mental health component, the Landwehr mental health component?
I can try. You know, one of the challenges we faced in that is that there never was any language. There never was any legislative language. It was a conceptual idea. And part of the concept was to do a pilot which provided some support, and she ended up being able to find $10 million of financial support for mental health services for 2 populations, one for foster kids and 2 for students during the time when they're not in school, nights, weekends, summers. And she wanted to do a pilot, and she initially had talked about Wichita and Topeka and Kansas City. She then broadened it to some additional communities because the thought was that it needed, if it was going to be a pilot to see if it worked, it needed to be broader. So Kyle Kessler, who is the lobbyist for the Community Mental Health Association, was really the person shepherding this through. So I was called into maybe the second or the third meeting. I know Bill Brady had been in at least one meeting before. And so they asked questions saying, this is what we're thinking. I had a couple of concerns, one being that it wasn't taking money from something that we were currently doing to provide support for mental health services in the state and dedicating to this purpose. Because clearly we're not doing enough already, and taking money from something that already exists for this pilot program didn't seem to me to be good public policy. My other concern was that this was not something, and she said this will be new money. My other concern was that this was not something that was being done in order to satisfy the court in the Gannon case. Because I said to her, Representative, a pilot program in a few districts doesn't take care of the need. We've heard from the State Board of Education that there's a need for 150 counselors across the state. And that's an ongoing need that we have, that if we're going to try to address issues statewide, that would be the way to do it. I think she hears what she wants. She can be kind of a bulldog when she wants something and can bring up.
You say bulldog?
Did I say that?
No, not Wyandotte bulldog.
No.
Bully dog.
Yeah, okay, bully dog. We'll go with that. And can bring up a lot of emotion in order to make her point clear. So she asked for some data on numbers of foster kids, and we just got access to a new system which allows us to pull that more easily. So we shared that with her. She suggested that this is something that schools could handle without any additional resources. We in Topeka made very, very clear that this would, additional, having additional counseling support, even if it wasn't inside of the schools, would require supervision from the school side, and that there would definitely be needs that would need to be a part of anything that was done. That was the last conversation we had. And then she went with something, and I understand she said at one point that we were all on board.
Yeah,
that wasn't the case?
I shared the emails. Board, the reason I bring this up is that, things move quickly in Topeka, but they don't move that quickly. And I'm sitting on the committee. These meetings apparently start in, so she says February. When it comes to the legislation, I called Dr. Lane. Dr. Lane says the same thing you do. It was considered a concept, not in stone, but it almost became a deal breaker. And I think it was just a lack of communication. That's why I'm saying I'm not asking why. I just don't want it to happen again, because it doesn't make sense. But she is worse than I am, so you can take that however you want to take it, and we know what we're dealing with. And she tries to manipulate people by crying. So how many foster kids do we have?
That crying.
213.
And the language in the bill still is not clear how it will work. But I did share the emails with both. Every time I had an email, I copied Dr. Lane and copied you. So the language was, in essence, skewed, and then at the point threatening. That if you don't like it, meaning me, then we'll take it from Kansas City. And I replied, just because you don't want to talk to me doesn't mean it's not something that our students can use. So what's in the language now in the bill? Did Kansas City stay in, or was it not?
We stayed in.
So it's a bumpy road, and again, we'll see.
Yeah.
So thank you, Madam President.
David, I have a quick question. Was it a proposed reduction of the LOB, the 15% of the LOB?
No, it wasn't a reduction at all. It was just, all it did was to
leverage,
was to mandate that, and see, the state has done this on a number of occasions. It mandated that every district have at least a 15% LOB. Now, every district does. But if you mandate something, then the state can say, that's something we're spending as a state, rather than something that comes from the local. So they can claim it in their case. It's similar to what they do with...
They can claim what?
They could claim that that $500 million is state investment in public education because they mandated it.
Okay.
It's similar to with CAPERS money that the state pays for our employees. They send it to us electronically, and almost immediately, we send it back. Now, of course, we have to pay to send it back, but we send it back, and then the state counts that money as additional support for public schools. We didn't get to spend it, choose how it was spent or anything, but, so it's a gimmick, but sometimes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, Lord.
Other questions?
Thank you for all that you do. Thank you so much. And we're now ready for the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I'd like to pull E, please, and reserve that for discussion in executive session.
Okay. Ready for a vote then of the consent agenda minus E.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and passed to approve the consent agenda minus E. Thank you. Payment of bills. I have a motion. Motion's been made.
Second.
And second to approve payment of bills K-12 and the library. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposing? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you.
I do have one question. ask that now, or did I let it go by too quick? I had called the superintendent about Marsha Pomeroy, and when I looked, I didn't see a payment
No,
for
there's
them.
not. Dr. Mather and Ms. Pomeroy are talking about the need, and we'll bring that forward at a later date. It's not in your payment of bills because we don't have a plan at this stage.
Okay. All right. I need a motion for the board to recess into executive session starting at 8:40 for an individual performance pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception in the Kansas Open Meetings Act. The board will return to a regular session at 5 minutes, 9:45. Have a motion, please, with action to follow. Motion been made. Here's a motion second. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposing? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you.